Chapter 885. Inside the Azura ancient palace, the Death Envoy was a shadowy figure that watched as Long Yu consumed the endless grade medicinal pill. At the same time, he shielded Long Yu from the natural phenomena that would occur if he consumed the pill. Transcendent grade, immemorial grade medicinal pills and above would cause natural phenomena when consumed. Without the Death Envoy shielding, Long Yu's secret would soon be discovered. But with the Death Envoy, you didn't need to worry about that. First, the transcendent grade, endless grade medicinal pill. Long Yu used the Nether Dragon Blade to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth from the endless grade medicinal pill. Furthermore, with the help of the transformative heaven core energy drawing technique, the endless grade medicinal pill's basic spiritual energy of heaven and earth doubled. Long Yu continued to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth from the endless grade medicinal pill. Starting from 5,000 kilometers, his inner world expanded to 50,000 kilometers. With every 5,000 kilometers, Long Yu would absorb some of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth from the endless grade medicinal pill. Initially, when it was 20,000 kilometers in diameter, it had absorbed less than 1% of the spiritual energy in the unbounded medicinal pill. But when it was 30,000 kilometers in diameter, it had absorbed 4%. And the further it went, the more spiritual energy of heaven and earth it needed to absorb. By the time Long Yu's inner world expanded to 70,000 kilometers, all of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the endless grade medicinal pill, including the Dubhe Chi guiding art, had been completely consumed. An endless grade medicinal pill hadn't been enough to help Long Yu break through to the Emperor realm. However, the reason why an endless grade medicinal pill was called endless was because of the word endless. When all the natural spiritual energy of heaven and earth was absorbed, more and more spiritual energy of heaven and earth would emerge from the pill. This was the power of an endless grade medicinal pill. Until the very last moment, you would never know how much spiritual energy of heaven and earth the pill would provide. It wasn't just a matter of luck, but also how old the medicinal pill was. Generally speaking, the older an endless grade medicinal pill was, the more spiritual energy it would contain. Without a doubt, the 4 endless grade medicinal pills Long Yu had obtained had existed for millions of years. They definitely contained a terrifying amount of spiritual energy of heaven and earth. 80,000 kilometers, 90,000 kilometers, a radius of 99,000 miles. Long Yu's inner world had finally expanded to 99,000 kilometers, which was the limit of the late stage of the King realm. Immediately after that, the spiritual seed that had originally appeared in the center of his inner world finally began to flourish. Just like how a world seed was needed to break through from the divine secret realm to the King realm, a spirit was needed to be born in one's inner world to break through from the King realm to the Emperor realm. However, a spirit seed had already been born in Long Yu's inner world when the true spirit of the dragon of the 9 underworlds was fused with it, and the origin energy was born. At the last moment, his inner world expanded to a radius of 100,000 miles. The spiritual seed exploded and spread throughout the entire inner world. He had broken through to the Emperor realm in one go. Long Yu could feel the strength inside his body growing stronger. His basic strength alone had doubled, and the strength of his inner world had also increased by at least 2-fold. In total, his strength had increased by 4 times. Long Yu had absolute confidence that even though he was only at the initial stage of the Emperor realm, he would at least be able to enter the top 100 if he were to participate in the competition of the strongest Emperor realm. Those who weren't at the level of Yu Hanxin, Black Knife, and Yi Ziwei wouldn't be a match for Long Yu. The top 100 was just a conservative estimate. However, Long Yu's current cultivation was definitely not enough to deal with people at the level of Yu Hanxin and Black Knife. After all, they were all geniuses who could fight above their realm, just like Long Yu. Their basic strength was more than 10 times stronger than Long Yu's. How could they possibly lose to Long Yu? However, Long Yu's advancement wasn't over yet. The first endless rank pill had already allowed him to break through to the initial stage of the Emperor realm, and he still had 3 more on him. If he were to consume all of these pills, what level would he be able to reach? Long Yu didn't have much confidence in his heart, because the Death Envoy had said that it wasn't safe to continuously increase one's martial Dao realm in the Emperor realm. It would cause one's inner world to be unstable and affect the process of stepping into the Emperor realm. However, this didn't stop Long Yu from increasing his cultivation to the peak of the initial stage of the Emperor realm. He was only 1 step away from the mid-stage of the Emperor realm. He prepared to take the second endless grade medicinal pill. Just like the first, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth contained in the second endless grade medicinal pill caused his inner world to expand at an incredible rate. It didn't take long for him to consume the third endless rank pill. The first one provided the least, the second the most, and the third the middle. However, Long Yu had only managed to expand his inner world to a radius of 990,000 kilometers. He was still a tiny bit away from the 1 million kilometer mark of the mid-stage of the Emperor realm. Long Yu stopped cultivating. He didn't plan on consuming the last endless rank pill for now. He decided to listen to the Death Envoy and not be too impatient for success. Given his current strength, there was no problem for him to make it into the top 10 strongest Emperor realm cultivators. More than half a month would have passed by the time he made it into the top 10. It wouldn't be too late for Long Yu to make a breakthrough by then. After consuming 3 endless rank pills in a row, Long Yu's cultivation rose so quickly that he couldn't adapt to his new strength. He had no choice but to have the Death Envoy spar with him. For the next 3 days, Long Yu sparred with the Death Envoy. Although he was no match for the Death Envoy was able to use the best method to help Long Yu familiarize himself with his new strength and stabilize his cultivation. If it weren't for the Death Envoy, Long Yu definitely wouldn't have been able to perfectly control the power within him. The Death Envoy's existence was a great help to Long Yu's martial Dao. 3 days later, Long Yu sat cross-legged in the great hall of the ancient Azura Palace and began to observe his inner world. By now, Long Yu's inner world had completely taken shape. At this moment, his inner world spanned a radius of 990,000 kilometers. It was a vast expanse of darkness. This vast expanse of darkness was divided into 9 regions by Long Yu. The central region was the region where the 9 Nether Dragon True Spirit had fused with. The 9 Nether Dragon True Spirit curled up and provided the entire inner world with its source energy. Long Yu hadn't used this source energy yet, but in the competition between the strongest Emperor Realm cultivators, he would definitely have to bring it out. This could be considered one of Long Yu's trump cards. The other 7 regions were where Long Yu's spirit fruits were located. The 7 great spirit powers formed the 7 pillars of his inner world. They were the first spirit power, 9 Nether Hand, Emperor Dao; the second spirit power, Soul Seal Siphon, Emperor Dao; the third spirit power, 9 Nether Dragon Breath, Emperor Dao; the fourth spirit power, Shadow Eye, high-grade spirit power; the fifth spirit power, Book of Shadows, Emperor Dao; the sixth spirit power, 9 Nether Hunter, high-grade spirit power; and the seventh spirit power, 9 Nether Path, high-grade spirit power. This was one of the greatest achievements Long Yu had made in the past year, after consuming the Sufferer's Pill. The last region of his inner world was the Living Region. In the Living Region, Long Yu had set up many sealing formations that sealed a total of 65,000 Ice God Clan exotic beasts. Every time Long Yu stimulated his inner world, he would absorb some of the energy from the Ice God Clan's mutated beasts. If he wanted to erupt, he could use the Ice God Clan's mutated beasts as a sacrifice to gain more energy in a short period of time. In the entire Shenwu world, other than Long Yu, Shi Yingwu was probably the only person who had learned the method of sealing exotic beasts in their inner world. Even Shi Yingwu didn't have any exotic beasts sealed in her inner world right now. This method was taught to him by the Envoy of Death, and very few people in outer space knew about it. This was because the power of exotic beasts was in fact different from that of human cultivators and Yao cultivators. Therefore, it was extremely difficult to seal them in one's inner world and convert them into one's own power. If one wasn't careful, their power would clash and they would lose their lives. Even in outer space, this method of sealing exotic beasts was extremely valuable. Therefore, Long Yu had made his greatest trump card. He had roughly estimated that if he sacrificed all the Ice God clan exotic beasts in his inner world, his strength would increase by at least 20 times in a short period of time. However, after the sacrifice, the basic strength of his inner world would decrease by 5 or 6 times. It wouldn't be easy to capture so many exotic beasts again. Therefore, he wouldn't use this method unless it was absolutely necessary. This was the current situation in Long Yu's inner world. Originally, his inner world was completely lifeless. But ever since he stepped into Emperor Realm and the spiritual seed had spread throughout his inner world, the inner world had begun to spontaneously give birth to suns, moons, and stars. The power of various divine characters had begun to condense. This process was extremely long. It would take at least 10 years for the first star to form in his inner world. As for the birth of a land like Shenwu World, it would take hundreds or even thousands of years. Of course, as long as Long Yu had enough spirit energy, he would be able to condense divine characters in his inner world and give birth to suns, moons, and stars. However, this would require a vast amount of spirit energy of heaven and earth. Even Long Yu didn't have that much spirit energy for him to waste right now. More importantly, the birth of suns, moons, and stars in his inner world wouldn't increase his strength by much, so there was no need to spend too much effort on it. Next up is to repair the Dragon Bone Tower. After consuming 3 endless grade pills, Long Yu prepared to repair the Dragon Bone Tower. He took out 10,000 grade, 1 divine character crystals and began to repair the tower according to the secret method taught to him by the Envoy of Death. The Dragon Bone Tower was originally an endless grade weapon belonging to the Juyo Dragon Emperor. However, when the Juyo Dragon Emperor died, the tower was also heavily damaged. Chapter 886. 10,000 Divine Rune Crystals. Even to the 5 Emperors, this was a massive number. But to the average person, it was impossible for them to need so many Divine Rune Crystals. In order to completely comprehend a source Divine Rune, one only needed to convert 1,000 Divine Rune Crystals. Even for people like Long Yu who had the Dubhe Chi channeling, he only needed to convert 600 to 700 Divine Rune Crystals. 10,000 Divine Rune Crystals was a huge sum. It was usually used to reinforce some extremely grand buildings. To Long Yu, the ancient Dragon Bone Tower was undoubtedly a grand building. However, he soon discovered that after repairing the ancient Dragon Bone Tower into a top-tier Archean combat weapon, he could shrink the tower and fit it in his palm. This ancient pagoda, which had accompanied Long Yu for a long time, had finally become big and small at this moment. Most of the time, Long Yu felt that the ancient Dragon Bone Tower was too huge and that it was inconvenient to use it. However, things were much better now. He even tried to make the ancient Dragon Bone Tower spin and charge out when he used the Dragon Bone Break. Not only was its power at least 10 times stronger than before, but its speed was also more than 10 times faster. Most importantly, the ancient Dragon Bone Tower was strong enough and would not be destroyed by the Dragon Bone Break. In fact, the ancient Dragon Bone Tower could completely withstand the attacks of ordinary martial emperors without suffering any damage. It took Long Yu 3 days to repair the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. After it was done, the competition for the strongest martial emperors was about to begin. Long Yu left the Azura ancient palace and quietly returned to the sacred tower of the 5 emperors. He entered the 10,000 floor space and prepared to participate in the competition. Long Yu, you have indeed broken through to the martial emperor realm. Yu Hanxin's eyes lit up when she saw Long Yu. How is it? Do you want to participate in the competition for the strongest martial emperor realm? That's right. Long Yu nodded with a smile. You have to go easy on me if you meet senior sister. Yu Hanxin giggled. Even if we meet in the early stages, we can choose to forfeit. As for the later stages, Your strength might even catch up to mine. Do you still need me to go easy on you then? Yu Hanxin's words were undoubtedly saying that Long Yu was definitely no match for her with his initial martial emperor realm cultivation. Long Yu did not mind. He knew that Yu Hanxin was right. Of course, it was only to a certain extent. If Long Yu had used all of his trump cards, he might have been able to defeat Yu Hanxin. Unfortunately, Long Yu naturally wouldn't use all of his trump cards in a competition between the strongest Emperor Realm experts. You should be careful since you are participating in the Martial Emperor Realm competition. There are quite a few Martial Emperor Realm cultivators. Yu Hanxin joked and then reminded Long Yu. There's a rather difficult barrier to breaking through from Martial Emperor Realm to Great Emperor Realm. Therefore, many peak Martial Emperor Realm cultivators are stuck in this realm. Their strength is on par with Martial Emperor Realm cultivators, but they have not yet encountered the opportunity to break through. Therefore, it is even more difficult to enter the top 10 of the Martial Emperor Realm competition than it is to take first place in the Martial Emperor Realm competition. Amen. Long Yu narrowed his eyes. Black Blade and Yi Ziwei will be participating this time, right? In addition, the Flame Emperor and the Holy Emperor will also send their personal disciples to participate in the Martial Emperor Realm competition. The competition for the Martial Emperor Realm is 100 times more intense than the Martial Emperor Realm. There were quite a few experts that Long Yu knew of. This was undoubtedly a great challenge for him, especially when he was only at the initial stage of Martial Emperor Realm. Everyone's basic strength was at least 10 times stronger than his when he was only at the initial stage of Martial Emperor Realm. Even the first round would be a bit difficult. After all, he would be fighting 2 levels above him. The day before the Martial Emperor Realm competition began, everyone began to register. Long Yu chose to participate without hesitation. News of Long Yu's participation spread through various channels and caused countless gasps of surprise. Every single Martial Emperor Realm cultivator who had come to participate in the Martial Emperor Realm was shocked. Long Yu had finished off every single opponent in the Martial Emperor Realm with a single move, but in the end, he had given first place to his friend Shi Yingwu. Now, Long Yu had signed up for the Martial Emperor Realm competition. Did he really want to enter the top 10 of the Martial Emperor Realm? This was going to be very difficult. Right now, Long Yu had only just broken through to Martial Emperor Realm. It would be quite difficult for him to face off against any late-stage Martial Emperor Realm cultivator, right? This was going to be a good show. The vast majority of people were looking forward to Long Yu's participation. They hoped to see an extremely exciting battle. After all, when Long Yu was in the strongest King Realm, he only needed a single move to deal with anyone. Then, what kind of performance would he have in the strongest Emperor Realm? No matter what, no one thought that Long Yu's life would be as smooth as it was when he was in the strongest King Realm. After all, the martial cultivators participating in the strongest Emperor Realm tournament were at least in the middle stage of the Emperor Realm, and most of them were in the late stage of the Emperor Realm. Compared to Long Yu, who was in the early stage of the Emperor Realm, his basic strength was 3 to 5 times, or even more than 10 times. How was he supposed to fight with such a huge gap? Not to mention, there were definitely geniuses who were as talented as Long Yu in the Martial Emperor Realm competition. For example, the direct disciples of the other 4 emperors, Yu Hanxin, and so on. These were all popular candidates for the Martial Emperor Realm competition. None of them would lose to Long Yu. This year's Martial Emperor Realm competition was already very intense. Now that Long Yu had joined the competition, it was obvious that it would become even more interesting. In the Shenluo Empire, when the eldest prince, Situ, Liuli, Qian Yuexia, and the others heard the news that Long Yu was participating in the competition, they were all pleasantly surprised. During the Martial Emperor Realm competition, their genius Wei Ming had died at the hands of Shi Yingwu. This made them extremely resentful. Now that the Martial Emperor Realm competition had begun, Long Yu had overestimated himself and signed up for the competition. They finally had a chance to avenge the deaths of their seniors in the Shenluo Empire. The people of the Shenluo Empire didn't have high hopes for the Martial Emperor Realm competition. At least, they didn't have high hopes for Wei Ming. For Wei Ming, they thought that he could at least enter the top 10 of the Martial Emperor Realm competition. They didn't expect that he would be killed by Shi Yingwu midway. However, for the martial cultivators who were participating in the Martial Emperor Realm competition, their goal was only to enter the top 100. Even so, they believed that with the strength of the participants who could reach the top 100 of the Martial Emperor Realm, they would definitely be able to kill Long Yu if they met him. After all, Long Yu had just stepped into the Martial Emperor Realm. His basic strength was 10 times weaker than an ordinary martial cultivator. It was easy to imagine that they had a high chance of defeating Long Yu. In the courtyard of the Cloudy Clouds Empire, Emperor Cloudy Clouds and his eldest son, Yin Jinglei, were overjoyed when they heard the news that Long Yu was participating in the competition. They stood up. Long Yu was participating in the Martial Emperor Realm competition. The heavens were on their side. Emperor Cloudy Cloud's hatred for Long Yu could be imagined. Not only was his third son's death related to Long Yu, even his second son was directly killed by Long Yu. His eldest son, Yin Jinglei, was already at the peak of the Martial Emperor Realm. Moreover, he had obtained a relatively good inheritance. He was determined to enter the top 100 of the Martial Emperor Realm competition. With such strength, if he met Long Yu, he would definitely be able to kill him. In the courtyard where Lei Emperor was watching the competition, Lei Emperor's third disciple, Ji Bai, was whispering to a handsome youth. "Ninth junior brother, if you meet that Long Yu, you must teach him a good lesson. Our master actually betrothed our 10th junior sister to that brat." "How infuriating," Ji Bai said fiercely to the handsome youth. The handsome youth secretly glanced at the nearby 10th junior sister, Yi Zuwei, and a trace of redness appeared on his face. Then his eyes flashed fiercely. "Don't worry, third senior brother. Junior sister Yi will definitely not be snatched away by that brat. If I meet him, I will definitely beat the crap out of him." "That's right. This time, only you and 10th junior sister are participating in the Martial Emperor Realm competition. If you meet Long Yu, only by defeating him will you be able to reunite with 10th junior sister. Moreover, that brat is the Red Emperor's disciple. As disciples of Lei Emperor, we cannot lose to him." Ji Bai's eyes were filled with malice. "If we lose to a brat who has just entered the Martial Emperor Realm, we will have lived our lives in vain. Don't worry, third senior brother." The handsome youth's eyes flashed with strange lightning. His pupils were clear, and one could see that there was an extremely terrifying power contained in his eyes. It was definitely some kind of powerful technique. In the spectator courtyard of the Su Medicine Hall, Su Ning said with some interest to the elders of the Su Medicine Hall, "I didn't expect that brat to actually participate in the Martial Emperor Realm competition. It looks like he is very confident in his own strength." It's good for young people to be confident, but too much confidence is not a good thing. An old man in a blue robe said faintly, "The formation master is right. This brat is just asking to be humiliated by participating in the Martial Emperor Realm competition." A white-haired swordsman behind Su Ning smiled. "If I, Su Jinbai, meet him, I will definitely let him know the difference between Peak Emperor Realm and Initial Emperor Realm." Su Jinbai was a genius who had always followed behind Su Ning. He was a Peak Emperor Realm cultivator, and he was also participating in the Martial Emperor Realm competition. He was determined to place in the top 3. When the news of Long Yu participating in the Martial Emperor Realm competition spread, almost everyone in the 10,000-layer realm was in an uproar. This was because it was too shocking, especially for many forces who had grudges against Long Yu. Long Yu's participation was a heaven-sent opportunity for them to take revenge. It was not hard to imagine that many of Long Yu's opponents would not choose to forfeit against him. Instead, they would maintain their martial Dao realm and fight Long Yu head-on. In fact, many forces who had grudges against Long Yu would most likely request a life and death battle with him if they met Long Yu. They would also throw away their King's Life medallion, like Shi Yingwu and Wei Ming had done. How many people in the 10,000-layer realm wanted to take Long Yu's life? Chapter 887. Compared to the 260,000 participants, there were only 50,000 or so Emperor Realm participants. It was a huge difference, but it didn't affect the excitement of the battles in the slightest. Since the competition was one level higher than the strongest King Realm, the battle between the strongest Emperor Realm cultivators was much more entertaining to watch. Emperor Realm cultivators generally had a wider variety of techniques, and most of them had mastered 2 or even 3 types of divine characters. There were even some who had mastered 4 types of divine characters. Although it was not the case that the more divine characters one grasped, the more divine characters one grasped meant that the same martial cultivator would be able to display an uncertain amount of power. Under different circumstances, they would be able to display different effects. As for Long Yu's situation, no one would believe him if he told them. Because he had consumed many archaic and ancient rank pills, Long Yu was now compatible with all 8 types of divine characters. Moreover, the pills also contained some divine runes, such as light divine runes, fire divine runes, elemental divine runes, ice divine runes, and so on. This allowed Long Yu to gain some understanding of these divine runes. However, these divine runes weren't at the origin level, so Long Yu didn't spend too much effort on them. At the end of the day, Long Yu mainly relied on shadow divine characters, such as the 9 Serenities divine characters, Azura divine characters, and 9 Serenities divine characters. They were all shadow divine characters. However, since it was compatible with the 8 divine characters, it fulfilled the requirements to cultivate a special divine chain technique. The Envoy of Death had already imparted it to Long Yu. Perhaps Long Yu would be able to use it during the competition of the strongest Emperor Realm. The competition officially began the next morning amidst the murmurs of the million martial cultivators in the Secret Realm. The rules for the competition between Emperor Realm and King Realm cultivators were the same. First, there would be a 2 out of 3 elimination round. Once the number of participants had dwindled to a certain point, the winner would be decided in one battle until the final ranking was decided. Every martial cultivator who participated in the competition stared at their life medallion. They wanted to see what kind of opponent the 10,000 layers had arranged for them. I drew Long Yu. A middle-aged, late-stage Emperor Realm man in the Nine Suns sect's courtyard laughed heartily, attracting the attention of the other martial cultivators in the surroundings. Xiao Shan Kuei, you're pretty lucky. Although you might not be able to enter the top 1,000 Emperor Realm experts with your strength, you should still be able to defeat Long Yu. That's right, Sparrow Mountain Chief. You have to work hard. If you can really defeat Long Yu, then not only will you be able to take revenge for our Lan Shuyan's bloodline, but it will also greatly increase the prestige of our Nine Suns sect. Senior Uncle Qiao's strength is second to none in our sect. You should have no problem against a brat who has just stepped into early-stage Emperor Realm. Everyone in the Nine Suns sect revealed envious expressions. This Qiao Shan was quite lucky to have drawn Long Yu. As long as he didn't lose to this brat, his reputation would definitely soar. However, this brat was a bit strange. He killed an early-stage Emperor Realm Lan Shuyan when he was only a mid-stage King Realm cultivator. Now that he'd stepped into early-stage Emperor Realm, did he have the strength to fight a late-stage Emperor Realm cultivator as well? Xiao Shan naturally saw through some people's thoughts. He sneered, "You all underestimate me too much. Back in the illusion realm of the 5 emperors, I had also stepped onto the 19th floor. How could I possibly be easy to deal with? What face would I have left if I couldn't deal with a junior 2 levels lower than me?" Immediately afterward, Xiao Shan and Long Yu were transported to the sky above a boundless ocean. Below them was the ocean, and above them was a patch of clouds. There were no other decorations. The entire battlefield appeared extremely spacious, and Long Yu and Xiao Shan were initially 25 kilometers away from each other. Long Yu immediately activated the shadow eye and discovered the other's tracks. The other made no attempt to conceal himself and flew straight towards Long Yu. Under these circumstances, Long Yu wanted to truly train his current combat strength. Therefore, he didn't use the 5th level of balance control to conceal himself. There wasn't much point in ambushing his opponent at this point. 25 kilometers was a distance that could be covered in the blink of an eye for an Emperor Realm cultivator. The two quickly met in the sky above the ocean, only 600 meters away from each other. Long Yu, you once killed a junior of my Nine Sons sect. Today, I will seek justice for my deceased junior. Xiao Shan's expression was one of righteousness. When matched with his square face, he exuded an air of righteousness. Thunder and fire divine characters rose from his body, and thunder and fire instantly soared into the sky. Nine Sons sect? Long Yu wasn't moved by these words. Not only had his martial Dao realm and strength increased in the past year of cultivation, even his mental state had become as calm as an ancient well. Moreover, the Nine Sons sect really wasn't a great power to him. I can finally put my strength to good use. The corners of Long Yu's lips curled up slightly as he thought this. He raised his hand, and the 9 hell divine characters surged from his body, forming a black shadow beside him. This was his 6th art, 9 Hell Hunter. The current 9 Nether Hunter was different from the past. In the past, the 9 Nether Hunter that Long Yu used was only an elementary level 3rd heaven divine ability. But now this divine ability had been comprehended to the 7th heaven, a high-level divine ability. Moreover, the 9 Hell Hunter was one of Long Yu's last 3 arts. Their foundational power was already greater than the first 4 arts. The 9 Hell Hunter wielded the Shadow Scimitar with both hands and charged at Xiao Shan Kuei, who was 200 meters away. Xiao Shan Kuei was unmoved by this and laughed lightly. You're underestimating me too much with such methods. Xiao Shan Kuei waved his hands. Lightning flashed in one hand and flames in the other. They formed 2 spiraling divine chains that spun towards the 9 Hell Hunter, instantly splitting it in half. See, it's just SOSO. I merely waved my hand casually. The corners of Xiao Shan Kuei's mouth curled up. He was extremely proud of himself. He felt that he was playing with the initial stage Emperor Realm Long Yu like a cat chasing a mouse. However, he was soon unable to smile anymore. This was because he discovered that even though the 9 Hell Hunter had been split in half by the lightning and flame divine chains, it hadn't been completely destroyed. In fact, the 2 halves of the Black Shadow quickly began to change shape. In less than a breath's time, they had turned into 2 9 Hell Hunters. Split? Was there a mistake? Xiao Shan Kuei was stunned. He then gritted his teeth and lightning flashed around his body. You dare to play around with such insignificant tricks? Watch as I shatter them. Xiao Shan Kuei was extremely confident in his own strength. After all, the divine characters of lightning and flame were extremely destructive. In the next moment, lightning fell from the sky. Each bolt was as thick as an arm, and they were so purple that it caused one's heart to tremble. They definitely contained terrifying power. In the next moment, under the bombardment of countless bolts of lightning, those 2 9th Hell Hunters were blasted to the point of being riddled with holes. However, they still struggled with the intention of splitting into even more 9th Hell Hunters. Unfortunately, the bombardment of the bolts of lightning was too intense, and they didn't even have the time to split into another form before the ball of 9th Hell Divine Markings was blasted into pieces, and they weren't able to condense once more in the end. I'm still too weak. If I could condense the innate ability of the 9 Nether Hunter into the Monarch Path, the situation would be completely different. It's a pity that I only managed to condense the first 3 innate abilities in the Book of Shadows into the Monarch Path after consuming so many pills. The rest are still at the level of advanced abilities. Long Yu thought to himself. The 9 Hell Hunters' failure to continue splitting and instead being smashed into pieces wasn't out of his expectations. After all, it was only a high-grade innate ability. Xiao Shan Kuei's lightning was also a high-grade innate ability. It was naturally not a problem to use it to deal with the 9 Hell Hunter. However, this was just a small experiment for Long Yu. He didn't expect to rely on a single 9 Hell Hunter to defeat his opponent. This wasn't a competition between the strongest King Realm cultivators, but the strongest Emperor Realm cultivators. In such a competition, Long Yu's cultivation had just stepped into the Emperor Realm. One could imagine the pressure he faced. Thus, at this moment, Longya became the focus of the million King Path secret realm cultivators. His battle was being watched by millions of people at the same time. Everyone was very curious. How far could Long Yu go in the competition between the strongest Emperor Realm cultivators? Everyone had different guesses, but no one dared to confirm Long Yu's results. Even the 5 emperors and the others couldn't see through Long Yu. Although Long Yu was the Red Emperor's personal disciple, the Red Emperor didn't know much about Long Yu. He only knew that Long Yu had his own secrets and had probably obtained some powerful inheritance. Now, it seemed that Long Yu's inheritance wasn't just powerful. It could be described with the word heaven-defying. 7 junior brother will have no problem dealing with a mere Qiao Shan Kuei. In the courtyard where the Red Emperor was, Xing Fa said with a faint smile. Not necessarily. After all, he has just stepped into the Emperor realm and doesn't have enough control over his own strength. Look, Yin Xiao sat lazily and smiled lazily. The hunter he summoned should have the ability to split infinitely. If used against an opponent of the same level, one hunter like this should be enough to kill them. But now, it was directly shattered by the Qiao Shan Kuei. There is still quite a gap between the two in terms of basic strength. Even so, I can see that 7th junior brother was just testing it out. The short swordsman Nailan Jun said expectantly, I can't see through 7th junior brother anymore. I hope that the Emperor Realm competition will reveal more of his abilities. I want to see just how heaven-defying he really is. No matter what, he won't be a match for 6th junior sister. Yin Xiao narrowed her eyes. She recalled her sparring with Yu Hanxin not too long ago. Yu Hanxin was only at the peak of Emperor Realm, but she had been able to hold her own against a late Emperor Realm cultivator like her. She had even been able to hold her own for a short period of time. This had astonished her greatly. Yu Xiaoyin felt that Yu Hanxin would take first place if nothing unexpected happened in this year's strongest Emperor Realm competition. Chapter 888. In the first round of the strongest Emperor Realm, there were over 1,000 simultaneous battles, but none of them had as many viewers as Long Yu's. Over 1 million cultivators from the Imperial Road Secret Realm were watching Long Yu's battle, wanting to see how he was doing. Long Yu's opponent, Keishan Kuei, used a thunderbolt to completely destroy the Hunter of 9 Serenities summoned by Long Yu, causing many to think that Long Yu was in trouble. From this alone, the difference between the two sides was too great. Is this Long Yu going to lose in the first round? Although it's understandable, it's too disappointing. That was what many people were thinking. But just as they were thinking that, Long Yu finally made a move. Dragon Breath of 9 Serenities. Long Yu spat out the Dragon Breath of 9 Serenities. The jet-black dragon breath flew towards Keishan Kuei and almost dyed the entire sky in sea black. This was his 3rd thaumaturgy, Dragon Breath of 9 Serenities. Moreover, it had already surpassed the 9th stage and reached the level of Emperor Realm. Emperor Realm, this was what a cultivator of the Imperial Road Secret Realm should be capable of. However, most cultivators of Shenwu World didn't have the comprehension and resources to do so. If he were to rely solely on tempering his inner world, even with Long Yu's aptitude and talent, he would need at least 10 years to temper his innate sacred art from the 7th level to the 8th level. If he wanted to reach the 9th stage, or even the Emperor Realm, the time needed would be even longer, almost exponentially longer. The only reason why Long Yu was able to reach the Emperor Realm in such a short period of time was because he took the pills of the afflicted. These pills were extremely precious even in outer space, and almost no one in Shenwu World had ever heard of them. Even the 5 emperors might not be able to get their hands on pills of this level. The King Dao Dragon Breath spewed out and instantly caused the proud Sparrow Mountain chief to feel a trace of pressure. He felt that this black energy contained an extremely powerful force that could even threaten him. But Keishan Kuei didn't care. His body flashed as he turned into a body of lightning and left his original spot. I didn't think you would actually learn the Emperor Realm, but it's too slow. You'll have to wait until your next life if you want to use it against me. Qiao Shan Kuei's eyes flashed fiercely. Then, he turned into a bolt of lightning and charged at Long Yu at an extremely fast speed. The lightning that filled the sky was like a torrential downpour, covering Long Yu's entire surroundings. He finally launched an attack at Long Yu. However, Long Yu didn't seem to care at all. With a wave of his hand, a layer of barrier of death condensed around him. In the next instant, the barrier of death actually blocked all the lightning bolts that filled the skies. At the same time, the dragon breath of the Way of the King that Long Yu had spat out suddenly pierced through the void and appeared in front of Qiao Shan Chief. A terrifying power instantly exploded, and a thick black fog completely covered the dazzling lightning. Long Yu's attack is able to pierce through the void and attack his opponent directly. It's too frightening, and isn't that power a bit too frightening? It feels like that attack isn't any weaker than Kei Shan Kuei's lightning. It's hard to imagine that this is something an initial Emperor Realm brat can do. Not only that, did you guys notice? Kei Shan Kuei's lightning attack was blocked by Long Yu. Even a late Emperor Realm attack can't break through Long Yu's defense. This kid is too heaven-defying. At this moment, the spectators began to exclaim in surprise. The scene they were witnessing was a common sight in a competition between the strongest Emperor Realm cultivators. But the person who had created this scene was only a brat who had just stepped into the initial Emperor Realm. Originally, the majority of people had felt that Long Yu would be suppressed by the Sparrow Mountain Chief. They had not expected that the battlefield would be so evenly matched. Divine chains of thunder and fire. At the place where the 9 underworld's dragon breath of the King Road level had exploded, a thunder-fire divine chain that was formed from lightning divine characters and fire divine characters intertwined with each other and swept towards Long Yu like an iron chain. Kei Shan Kuei hadn't died from the 9 underworld dragon breath, but that was normal. After all, Long Yu and Kei Shan Kuei were 2 levels apart in terms of martial Dao realm, and their basic strength was 10 times weaker. This lightning fire divine chain broke through the pitch-black fog created by the 9 underworld's dragon breath and directly attacked Long Yu, who was blocking the lightning that filled the sky. Long Yu's barrier of death directly blocked the Sparrow Mountain Chief's lightning attacks. When he saw the lightning and fire divine chains flying towards him, he immediately activated the Void Divine Runes. Merak Steps. Void Divine Runes revolved within Long Yu's body. Using the Merak footwork, he directly teleported 300 meters away. However, he discovered that the divine chains of lightning and fire had changed directions and were still coming for him. It looked like he had no choice but to meet force with force. Long Yu wasn't afraid at all, but he didn't want to expose his other techniques so early on. Hand of 9 Underworlds. Annihilation. Long Yu finally used his number 1 technique, the Hand of 9 Underworlds. This technique was similar to the 9 Underworld's Dragon Breath in that it had stepped into the level of the Emperor Realm. Its power was terrifying. A white bow and arm pierced through the air and grabbed the divine chain of thunder and fire. The divine characters of the thunder and fire were instantly annihilated under the activation of the 9 Underworld's divine characters. Annihilate. Long Yu's figure didn't move, but the slender white bone arm that had drilled out from the void swept out, directly reaching into the center of the lightning that filled the sky, grabbing onto the most intense lightning, and then completely annihilating it within. As the core of the lightning was annihilated by the hand of 9 Underworlds, the lightning began to dissipate. It was clear that Long Yu's move had destroyed the foundation of the entire lightning domain. What? Qiao Shan Kuei's expression immediately changed. The sky full of thunder he had just used was his 7th god art, a high-level god art, thunder domain. It could turn everything within 10 miles into a thunder domain. Although the offensive power of this domain was not strong, it was extremely difficult to break, unless the other party could find the core of his lightning domain. However, even Emperor Realm experts rarely found the core of his lightning domain. How did this brat do it? In the lightning domain, Kei Shan Kuei's power would be increased to a certain extent. However, the lightning domain had been directly destroyed by Long Yu. This made his expression a little gloomy. This Long Yu seemed a bit strange. He was indeed not easy to deal with. Xiao Shan Kuei immediately activated the Thunder Divine runes again, creating a thunder domain on the field. He wanted to see if Long Yu was just a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse, or if he just happened to destroy the thunder domain. But this time, the moment the lightning domain appeared, Long Yu's hand of 9 underworlds directly crushed it, completely destroying it. This brat really has a way to find the core of my lightning domain. Keishan Kuei was certain now. The next moment, all the power in his body gathered in his fist, turning it into a place where lightning and fire gathered. Fist of lightning and fire. This fist was the ultimate killing technique that Keishan Kuei had mastered. It was an ancient martial technique that he had cultivated to a transcendent realm. Not only was its destructive power terrifying, but it could also pierce through space and reach his opponent. As the fist of lightning and fire shot out, Long Yu narrowed his eyes and flashed behind Keishan Kuei. This flash allowed him to form a void vortex beside Keishan Kuei. This was the effect of comprehending the void divine runes. This void vortex entangled Keishan Kuei for a moment. At the same time, the fist of lightning and fire that Keishan Kuei had previously used also appeared behind Long Yu and smashed into Long Yu's back. The figure of Long Yu shattered with a sound. This was actually just a clone. After Keishan Kuei destroyed the void vortex, he realized that Long Yu had only been hit by an avatar. His expression became extremely ugly because he knew that as long as he used the fist of lightning and fire, he would be able to lock onto his target. Even if the target was invisible or formed an avatar, he would not be able to escape the pursuit of the fist of lightning and fire. But his Thunderfire fist hit nothing but air. The fist smashed into Long Yu's avatar. Although Long Yu's avatar was smashed to pieces, what use was that? What made Keishan Kuei feel even more uneasy was that he didn't know where Long Yu's real body was. Shadow Kill Art. In the next moment, countless shadows appeared around Keishan Kuei. These shadows turned into pitch-black blades that stabbed towards him. The endless pitch-black shadow blades caused Keishan Kuei to snort coldly. You want to hurt me with this? How naive. He raised his hand and endless lightning and fire condensed into a defensive barrier around him. This was his dual divine ability, the barrier of lightning and fire. It had extremely strong defensive capabilities and could even withstand the attacks of ordinary early-stage Emperors. But against Long Yu, Keishan Kuei had miscalculated once again. Among the countless pitch-black shadow blades was the Nether Void Dragon Blade. This supreme, ancient rank combat weapon had always been unstoppable in Long Yu's hands, and it was no different now. The other Shadow Kill Blades were blocked by Xiao Shan Kuei's Lightning Fire Barrier, but the Nether Void Dragon Blade actually pierced through the Lightning Fire Barrier and pierced Xiao Shan Kuei's arm. If Keishan Kuei had dodged a little faster, the Nether Void Dragon Blade would have been aiming for his heart. If his heart had been pierced, he would have died without a doubt. Feeling the pain from his arm, Keishan Kuei broke out in a cold sweat. He didn't think that he would be injured by a mere Long Yu. Moreover, his body was that of a late-stage Emperor Realm cultivator. How could his arm be pierced so easily? That combat weapon's penetrative power is too strong. Chapter 889. Just as a trace of fear appeared in Xiao Shan Chief's heart, Long Yu's attack descended once again. 9 nether hands, annihilation. Long Yu appeared, and with a wave of his hand, he directly condensed 7 9 nether hands. 7 white bone arms drilled out of the void, descending towards Sparrow Mountain Chief. Each white bone arm emitted a terrifying aura. This was Long Yu's ultimate move. Concede. I concede. Xiao Shan Chief broke out in a cold sweat and hurriedly activated his king's life tablet to indicate his defeat. This Long Yu's methods were too terrifying. He had all kinds of King's Path techniques and all kinds of strange combat performances, making Xiao Shan Chief feel more and more vulnerable. He was afraid that he would suddenly die, so he hurriedly chose to concede. He had heard that there was a genius from the Taiwu Empire, Gu Feichen, who had been beaten half to death by Long Yu's people during the strongest King Realm competition. In the end, he had to spend 500 million Shinbi to save him. Xiaoshan Chief did not want to suffer such treatment. As for losing this battle, he still had 2 more chances. If he won the next 2 battles, he would still advance. As Xiaoshan activated his king's life tablet, the battle came to an end. The final result was actually Long Yu's victory. Before the battle began, half of the audience felt that Long Yu might win, but they did not expect it to be like this. Shouldn't it be a difficult victory? But now, it seemed that Long Yu did not spend much effort to deal with this Xiaoshan chief. Although the 7 white bow and arms were very shocking, they were certainly not Long Yu's trump card. This kid had hidden his strength well. Long Yu's first battle had ended, so he did not arrange a second battle for the time being. However, Long Yu didn't stay idle. He chose the option on the king's life tablet and began to watch other people's battles. What he wanted to see the most was the battle between Yu Hanxin, the Black Knife, and Yi Ziwei. Other than that, Long Yu also asked Yu Hanxin about the other disciples of the 5 emperors who were participating in the Emperor Realm tournament. After learning their names, he prepared to watch the battles. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Long Yu naturally didn't think that he was invincible in the Emperor Realm. Long Yu was certain that no one was his match during the strongest King Realm competition, but the strongest Emperor Realm was on a completely different level. After all, he had only just stepped into this realm, and he was very unfamiliar with the opponents at this level. As he watched Yu Hanxin, the Black Knife, Yi Ziwei, and the others fight, Long Yu gained a basic understanding of their fighting styles. However, it was obvious that this was only the first round, and what Long Yu saw was definitely not their true strength. If the battle between Long Yu and Xiaoshan Chief was said to be a stalemate for a while, then Yu Hanxin and the others had completely crushed their opponents in the first round. Although many opponents had chosen to forfeit when facing Yu Hanxin and the others, there were always those who were not afraid of death who wanted to challenge them. Moreover, it wasn't like they had no chance at all even if they lost a battle. It was a good choice for some people to witness the strength of the strongest first. Long Yu also knew the personal disciples of the Sage Emperor, Flame Emperor, and Lei Emperor. Among them, apart from Yi Ziwei, Lei Emperor's 10th disciple, there was also a 9th disciple named Huang Zetian. His name was rather domineering, and he was also at the peak of Emperor Realm. His strength should be pretty good as well. However, Long Yu didn't wait for Huang Zetian to enter the arena before his second opponent was announced. Yi Ziwei. Long Yu was a bit dumbfounded when he saw the information on his life medallion. He never thought that his second opponent in the first round would be Yi Ziwei. The last time he met Yi Ziwei was a year ago, and Long Yu hadn't seen her since his return. Now that he thought about it, Yi Ziwei seemed to be quite interested in Long Yu a year ago. Of course, this so-called interest didn't refer to the relationship between a man and a woman, but something else Long Yu was well aware of. Since they met, there was no reason for him to refuse. Long Yu also wanted to experience Yi Ziwei's current strength first. He knew very well that this battle would definitely be a difficult one, and he might even lose. After all, this was only the first round. Under the situation where neither of them used their trump cards, Long Yu didn't have a high chance of winning against Yi Ziwei. However, if both of them used their trump cards at the same time, the outcome would be uncertain. Long Yu believed that his trump cards would definitely be stronger than Yi Ziwei's, and if he used them, Yi Ziwei wouldn't be able to resist them. No matter what, this was only the first round. Long Yu could go up and test the waters first. Even if he couldn't, he could admit defeat first. As long as he won one more round, he could still enter the second round. Except, with this in mind, Long Yu directly chose to accept the battle and decided to fight with Yi Ziwei first. When Long Yu accepted the battle, everyone in the courtyard of the Heavenly Mandate Manor suddenly became nervous. This time, Long Yu's opponent was Yi Ziwei, the 10th personal disciple of Lei Emperor. She was already at the peak of the Emperor Realm. If it weren't for the competition of the strongest Emperor Realm, Yi Ziwei would have already chosen to enter the Emperor Realm. A year ago, when Long Yu went on an exploration mission, he once invited Yi Ziwei to escort him. At that time, Yi Ziwei could fend off more than a dozen early-stage Emperor Realm and even mid-stage Emperor Realm cultivators by herself. Now that Yi Ziwei had cultivated for another year, how would her strength improve? For everyone in the Heavenly Mandate Manor, Long Yu against Yi Ziwei was unexpected. But for Long Yu to accept the battle was also unexpected. Yu Hanxin had just finished her first battle. Now that she saw the situation, her eyes suddenly revealed a look of interest. Long Yu, Yi Ziwei, I didn't expect to meet the two of you first. I wonder how many tricks you will use in this round. Yu Hanxin guessed. She could be sure that this was only the first round. Neither of them would use their true strength, but she could roughly estimate their strength. Long Yu against Yi Ziwei. This arrangement was completely unexpected for the millions of martial arts cultivators in the secret land of the King's Path. No one would have thought that these two would meet so early. Including the 5 emperors, no one would have thought that there would be such an arrangement. But the order of the battle was randomly generated in the space. Even the 5 emperors could not participate in it and affect the outcome of the arrangement. Therefore, such a battle directly attracted the attention of all the spectators. Not a single person was not paying attention. This was the first face-to-face battle between the direct disciples of the 5 emperors. Moreover, one of them was Long Yu, who had just made a name for himself in the strongest King Rel competition. Now, Long Yu against Yi Ziwei. Could he continue his undefeated record? Regarding this, most people did not think that Long Yu could win. After all, Yi Ziwei's true strength was equivalent to the middle stage Emperor Realm. She could even fight against a late-stage Emperor Realm cultivator. And Long Yu had just stepped into the early stage of the Emperor Realm. The gap between the two was too big. Long Yu had to spend a lot of effort to fight against someone like Sparrow Mountain Chief. But if someone of this level was given to Yi Ziwei, she could definitely finish him off in one move. This was the gap between Long Yu and Yi Ziwei. It was very obvious. Many experts in the spectator courtyard where the Thunder Emperor was it also became interested. Especially the 3rd direct disciple of Lei Emperor, Ji Bai, and the 9th direct disciple, Huang Zetian. Both were extremely excited at the moment. That kid was going to fight against Yi Ziwei. In a place like this, there was no way Yi Ziwei would show mercy. In other words, that kid was going to be tortured by Yi Ziwei, and Yi Ziwei was extremely competitive. She did not like men who were weaker than her. This battle would make her realize that Long Yu was weaker than her. Therefore, to Ji Bai and Huang Zetian, this was an extremely good thing. Of course, not everyone was happy to see Long Yu against Yi Ziwei. For example, those who wanted Long Yu dead knew very well the identities of Yi Ziwei and Long Yu. In a place like this, there was no way they would fight to the death. It was definitely just a friendly match. Even if Long Yu lost, he would only lose face, not his life. Moreover, to Long Yu, losing to Yi Ziwei was a very normal thing. Even if he lost face, there would be a limit to it. Damn it, if I go against that kid, I'll definitely fight him to the death. Emperor Yunduin's eldest son, Yun Jinglei, thought to himself. At this moment, his expression was extremely gloomy. After all, if Long Yu was eliminated too early, he wouldn't have the chance to meet Long Yu and kill him to avenge his 3rd and 2nd brothers. Yun Jinglei did not want to see Long Yu in the limelight, but he did not want Long Yu to be eliminated just like this. This was a very complicated feeling that no one could understand in the courtyard where the Red Emperor was. Xing Fa and Dao Jingtian respectfully stood next to the Red Emperor. They spoke with anticipation. I didn't think Brother Long would meet his opponent so soon. I wonder how many moves he can take from that girl. The Red Emperor smiled kindly. Long Yu is very talented. His final performance will surprise everyone. However, this is only the first round. If it was you, would you show your true strength? Of course not. Both Xing Chun and Dao Jingtian shook their heads. They understood that this battle could only be considered as a probing battle between Long Yu and Yi Ziwei. If they wanted to use this battle to determine the strength of the two, it would be completely undesirable. Of course, this didn't stop the battle between Long Yu and Yi Ziwei from attracting everyone's attention. Though they couldn't see their true strength, there was no doubt that this battle was going to be very exciting. Countless people began to bet on this battle. Most of them guessed that Yi Ziwei would win. However, there were too many people who guessed that Yi Ziwei would win. Even if she did win, those who bet on her wouldn't win much. Chapter 890. Long Yu accepted the battle with Yi Ziwei and was teleported to a mountain range. This mountain range had a radius of 100 miles and was surrounded by mountains and rocks. The terrain was very complicated. Most importantly, these mountains and rocks actually contained some kind of special material that could block the detection of ordinary detection abilities. This brought a lot of trouble to ordinary martial cultivators because it was very easy to hide in such a terrain. It would take a long time before a winner could be decided. Some of the weaker participants even had the perfect opportunity to defeat the stronger ones. However, this was an exception for Long Yu. Not only had Long Yu comprehended the 7th level of Shadow Eye, he had also mastered the 5th level of the martial Dao secret art, balance control. With the two techniques working together, Long Yu could easily sense the changes in power within 1,000 miles. After cultivating balance control, the principles of Long Yu's detection were completely different from others. This was a big advantage for him in the competition of the strongest Emperor realm. Therefore, he was able to easily discover Yi Ziwei's whereabouts. However, Yi Ziwei was unable to discover Long Yu because Long Yu was currently hiding behind a mountain peak. The mountain peak blocked Yi Ziwei's detection. Of course, Long Yu couldn't be bothered to keep hiding. There were two reasons for him to participate in this battle. One was to feel Yi Ziwei's power, and the other was to mislead Yi Ziwei and the others about his own strength. Therefore, there was no point in hiding. Long Yu wanted a head-on confrontation. He flew directly over the mountain range and was immediately detected by Yi Ziwei. The two quickly approached each other, and the distance of dozens of miles was closed in a moment. I didn't expect to meet you so early. I thought I would have to wait until the last few rounds. Yi Ziwei flew over from afar. When she was still at the horizon, the corners of her mouth slightly curled up as she spoke to Long Yu. I believe it's the same for you whether it's earlier or later. Long Yu said with a smile. That's true. However, it's not the same for you. A hint of caution appeared in Yi Ziwei's eyes. I thought you would choose to forfeit. I didn't expect you to accept in the end. Aren't you afraid of losing to someone else after you lose to me and lose the right to continue? You seem to be very confident in yourself. Long Yu's lips curled upwards. Of course. Yi Ziwei smiled indifferently. She was too lazy to talk nonsense. She had wanted to fight with Long Yu for a long time. Unfortunately, Long Yu had disappeared a year ago. She couldn't find him even if she wanted to. Now that she had finally met him again, Yi Ziwei wouldn't give up this opportunity so easily. Thunder, heavenly punishment from all directions. Yi Ziwei raised her hand, and the lightning mark on her forehead immediately lit up. It actually easily moved the clouds in the sky, causing them to quickly gather. In the next moment, 8 terrifying bolts of purple lightning descended from the sky. 8 bolts of lightning blasted at Long Yu from 8 different directions, and their speed was extremely fast. Long Yu's figure flickered subconsciously, and he used the Merak footwork to dodge. However, he suddenly found that his figure did not move, and he was still in the same place. It's an illusion array. This little girl, it seems like she set up an illusion array while talking to me. The space around me is not sealed, but if I want to leave this space, I'll have to break the illusion array. It's too late. I can only fight it head-on. Long Yu's expression slightly changed. He didn't think that Yi Ziwei would use such a trick against him. But then again, nothing is too deceitful in war, so Yi Ziwei's actions weren't wrong. Most importantly, for Long Yu, fighting head-on would allow him to accurately determine the opponent's power. Fallen Dark Star. Long Yu raised his hand and instantly condensed 8 fallen dark stars. Immediately after, the barrier of death appeared around his body and protected him. If you fight head-on, you'll die if you don't surrender. In the distance, Yi Ziwei spoke with extreme confidence, and a smile of victory appeared on her face. Her 8-direction divine punishment is an extremely important part of Lei Emperor's inheritance. It's an ancient high-grade martial skill, which can be said to be the strongest martial skill in Shenwu world, right? Not only that, but she has also cultivated this martial skill to perfection, making it extremely destructive. If she were to face it head-on, even she wouldn't be able to block it, and it's very likely that she'll be smashed to pieces by the 8-direction divine punishment. Now, she took advantage of the time she was talking to Long Yu to set up an illusion array, making it so that Long Yu can't dodge and can only take it head-on. This way, unless Long Yu uses his king's life plate, he'll die without a doubt. Of course, Yi Ziwei thinks this way, but Long Yu doesn't think so. 8 fallen dark stars condensed and flew towards the 8-direction divine punishment lightning bolts as fast as possible. Under Long Yu's 5th level control, these 8 fallen dark stars directly charged into the 8 divine punishment lightning bolts. Break! Long Yu instantly detonated the 8 fallen dark stars. Immediately after, the 8 divine punishment lightning bolts were struck and became half as thin as before. How is this possible? Yi Ziwei's expression immediately changed. She could feel that her 8 divine punishment lightning bolts were struck by Long Yu, and their power was directly reduced by more than half. Yi Ziwei has never seen or heard of this kind of method before. A martial skill that can weaken the opponent's martial skill? Or a thaumaturgy? Yi Ziwei didn't know, but she wasn't as confident as before that her 8-direction divine punishment would be able to force Long Yu to use his king's life plate. After all, his 8-direction divine punishment's power has been reduced by half, but for Long Yu, this kind of method is very easy to use. Although the fallen dark star is small, the power contained within it isn't small. Just a single fallen dark star explosion is enough to destroy the energy structure of any other attack. Just now, Long Yu had activated the star explosion, allowing the fallen dark star's energy to destroy the energy structure of the 8 heavenly punishment lightning bolts, directly reducing their destructive power by more than half. Only by cultivating balance control to the 5th layer would one be able to find the flaws in an opponent's attack in an instant and use Fallen Dark Star to deal with them. If it were anyone else, even if they cultivated Fallen Dark Star, it would be impossible for them to destroy the structure of an opponent's attack and weaken the power of their attack. In the entire Shenwu world, only Long Yu can use this method. Immediately afterwards, 8 bolts of heavenly punishment lightning smashed into Long Yu's barrier of death. At this time, Long Yu had already completely comprehended the divine rune of death at the source level. In addition, he had already cultivated his deathly body tempering to perfection. The defensive strength of the barrier of death was at least 100 times stronger than it was a year ago. The weakened 8 divine punishment lightning bolts took a full 2 breaths of time to finally destroy the barrier of death and land on Long Yu's body. An extremely numb feeling spread throughout his body, but Long Yu's physical body was far stronger than a normal person's. Even though the 8-direction divine punishment had been weakened, it didn't cause any damage to Long Yu at all, only numbing his body for a moment. This scene fell into Yi Ziwei's eyes, causing her eyelids to twitch. Without a doubt, Long Yu's response was out of her expectations. Originally, Yi Ziwei thought that even if this attack couldn't force Long Yu to use his king's life plate, it would at least force Long Yu to use some of his hidden trump cards, right? However, she found that Long Yu only used a few normal methods to easily resolve this crisis. As for this illusion formation, Hand of 9 Serenities, destroy it. Long Yu didn't just stand there and do nothing. He was still trapped in the illusion formation, so if he didn't destroy it, he would only be able to take a beating without being able to fight back. This obviously wasn't the result Long Yu wanted. Since this was a probing battle, Long Yu didn't just want to test Yi Ziwei's attack power, but also her defense and movement techniques. 7 white skeletal arms instantly stretched out from the void, directly grabbing at the few key eyes of the illusion array surrounding Long Yu. Then, with a burst of strength, the key parts of the entire illusion array were completely annihilated, causing the illusion array to lose its effect. This method caused Yi Ziwei to be shocked once again. If it was said that she did not expect Long Yu to be able to withstand her 8-directional heavenly punishment so easily, then what she did not expect was that Long Yu would be able to easily break through her illusion array with just a swipe of his skeletal arm. It was as though Long Yu clearly knew where the weak points of her illusion array were and had deliberately attacked those weak points. Such a powerful perceptive ability, just where did it come from? Without a doubt, it was the balance control of the 5th level of the Martial Path secret technique. Even in outer space, the Martial Path secret techniques were only passed down by some major sects and forces. Even the Juyo Dragon Emperor only knew 3 Martial Path secret techniques. However, each secret technique allowed a martial cultivator to be like a fish in water in a battle. Although secret martial arts couldn't directly increase a martial cultivator's attack or defense, they had their own uses. For example, balance control. Even though he was only at the 5th level, he could already see through the weaknesses of most techniques and counter them. The most despicable thing was that this method was quite subtle. Yi Ziwei only knew that Long Yu had weakened her attack and destroyed her illusion formation, but she didn't know how Long Yu had done it. However, I only need to know that you have this ability. That's enough. Yi Ziwei's lips curled into a smile. Long Yu's ability was very terrifying. If he was at the late or peak Emperor realm, she might not be a match for Long Yu. However, Long Yu is only at the initial stage of the Emperor realm. How could she, Yi Ziwei, not be able to deal with Long Yu who had just stepped into the Emperor realm? Although Long Yu was a genius who could fight above his realm, so was Yi Ziwei. When both parties could fight above their realm, the difference in cultivation realm could also determine the outcome of the battle. Immediately afterward, the lightning mark on Yi Ziwei's forehead lit up and condensed into a wave of lightning that surrounded her body. This was a defensive method to prevent Long Yu from sneaking an attack. Yi Ziwei knew Long Yu's fighting style very well. She didn't know when Long Yu would appear behind her and launch a sneak attack. Therefore, she decided to maintain her defensive method. Chapter 891. Long Yu didn't give Yi Ziwei too many chances to display her techniques. With a flicker, the netherworld divine runes within his body completely erupted. In an instant, over 100 desolate ancient phantoms were condensed. These desolate ancient phantoms all displayed their own techniques as they rushed towards Yi Ziwei. Hand of the 9 Nether, Nether Spiral, 9 Nether Dragon Breath, 9 Nether Dragon 9 Explosions, Netherworld Explosion, 9 Nether Heavenly Light, Shadow Kill. The power of countless divine texts gathered together and enveloped Yi Ziwei's entire body. The battlefield immediately turned pitch black. Under the cover of the 9 Nether Heavenly Light, even Yi Ziwei didn't know how many attacks she was facing, let alone others who couldn't see what was happening inside. As for the 8-directional heavenly punishment that Yi Ziwei had unleashed, it was blocked by Long Yu using the same method as before. His current fleshly body was extremely terrifying, and it was definitely stronger than Yi Ziwei's. After being weakened by the fallen Dark Star and balance control, the 8 Nether Heavenly Wrath could not harm Long Yu at all. Thunderball. Just as Yi Ziwei was facing countless attacks, a thunderball formed from divine texts appeared in front of her. As soon as this thunderball appeared, it immediately produced a powerful suction force, sucking in all the 9 Nether Heavenly Light around it. As for the various attacks that Long Yu's primordial shadows used, they were all sucked in by the thunderball, unable to affect Yi Ziwei at all. Not only that, but the thunderball that had absorbed the 9 Nether Heavenly Light and the various divine texts had become extremely unstable. It would probably only take a slight touch for it to completely erupt, and its destructive power would be even greater than Long Yu's previous attacks. Electromagnetic force. Yi Ziwei's lips curled into a smile. She raised her hand and condensed a strange divine text. As for her body, she quickly moved away from the thunderball that had absorbed all kinds of power. Electromagnetic force can actually produce such a powerful suction force? Long Yu's expression changed slightly. At that moment, he felt a powerful force pulling him towards the lightning sphere. This electromagnetic force had actually sealed the power of the spatial divine runes, making it impossible for Long Yu to escape. In the next moment, Long Yu's entire body was directly sucked over and collided with the extremely unstable ball of lightning. This lightning sphere had absorbed the power of over 100 of Long Yu's attacks. Now that Long Yu's body collided with it, it immediately exploded. As Long Yu was being sucked in, he tried using the 9 underworld path. However, he was unable to break the spatial seal and escape using spatial force. The electromagnetic force was still too powerful for the current Long Yu. It was difficult for him to resist it. When he collided with the lightning sphere, he could only condense layer after layer of barrier of death. Unfortunately, the lightning sphere had absorbed too much of Long Yu's power. Accompanied by its own unstable characteristics, it erupted with destructive power, directly destroying 3 layers of barrier of death that Long Yu had set up. The remaining power blasted onto Long Yu's body. "I didn't expect that I would have to use a new method," Long Yu laughed bitterly. He had some understanding of Yi Ziwei's power. The explosive power of this lightning sphere was too powerful. Not only had it easily destroyed 3 layers of barrier of death, but its remaining power was definitely enough to severely injure Long Yu's body. Therefore, if Long Yu didn't want to admit defeat, he could only use some other new methods. Aura of Death. Long Yu subconsciously moved his mind, and the power of endless divine characters of death wrapped around his body. This endless aura of death actually formed an extremely dense layer of defensive barrier. The tyrannical power of the lightning sphere's explosion rushed directly into this layer of aura of death. However, when the power of the countless divine characters passed through the aura of death, more than half of it was annihilated by the aura of death. This was the effect of the aura of death. No matter what kind of powerful attack it was, it could annihilate half of its destructive power. Then, with Long Yu's perfected realm of death tempering, his body successfully blocked this attack. Although it was extremely difficult, at least he managed to block it. However, Long Yu still didn't have it easy. This was because when he escaped from the lightning sphere's explosion, he discovered that the entire sky above his head was already filled with dark clouds. Moreover, endless purple lightning flashed continuously in the dark clouds. Long Yu's heart sank. He could feel that the sky within a circumference of 100 miles had already become like this. What was even more frightening was that the sky was still pressing down on him. Imperial Way, purple lightning sky. The corners of Yi Ziwei's mouth curled up. Her entire body floated high in the sky, and the lightning mark on her forehead was extremely bright. It actually resonated with the lightning-filled sky. She had actually mobilized the entire sky to explode with purple lightning and cause the entire sky to press down. Under such an attack, Long Yu couldn't dodge or block it. As expected, it's the Imperial Way. Long Yu frowned slightly. Yi Ziwei had indeed used an Imperial Way technique, and the momentum of this Imperial Way technique was actually so great. However, this was probably because of the lightning mark on her forehead that it could produce such a terrifying effect. As for the lightning mark on Yi Ziwei's forehead, it was completely innate. It could increase the power of the divine characters of thunder and lightning, making the power of the divine characters of thunder and lightning extremely terrifying. So what if it's the Imperial Way? Watch me break it. Long Yu raised his head and looked at the purple lightning sky that was pressing down. Suddenly, he was filled with heroic spirit. The aura of his entire body suddenly changed, and he flew up into the sky. Death Chi, break for me. Hand of the Nine Nether, annihilate. All the power in Long Yu's body erupted. The death chi that had originally wrapped around him directly left his body and turned into a black fog that flew forward. In an instant, it was drowned in the purple lightning sky. On the surface, the death chi didn't seem to have any effect. However, through his balance control, Long you could sense that the strength of the divine characters of thunder and lightning in the sky that the death chi had passed through had been reduced by half. Immediately afterward, 7 white bone arms shot out of the void and grabbed the sky that the death chi had rushed into. As each white bone arm rushed into the sky, the aura of the 9 nether exploded and continuously annihilated that part of the purple lightning sky. When the 7 white bone arms disappeared in the sky, only a thin layer of the purple lightning sky that was constantly pressing down was left. Dragon breath of the 9 nether. Break! As soon as Long Yu opened his mouth, a pitch-black dragon breath directly broke through the entire layer of purple lightning sky, and his entire body burst out from the gap. This scene caused an uproar among the spectators. Long Yu actually possessed such terrifying power. With all kinds of techniques, he actually broke through Yi Ziwei's Imperial Way technique. Did he want to use the purple lightning sky to continuously press down and force Long Yu to death? It was impossible, because Long Yu actually had the ability to break through the purple lightning sky. What exactly is this power that weakened my various techniques? Yi Ziwei could also see that Long Yu's techniques were strange, but she wasn't worried when she saw Long Yu break through her purple lightning sky. Instead, a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. But it doesn't matter. You thought that you broke through my purple lightning sky, but you didn't know that this was a trap I set for you. It's not difficult to break through the purple lightning sky, but once you break through it, you'll be faced with a desperate situation. At this moment, Long Yu also knew that he had been tricked. After he broke through the entire purple lightning sky, he discovered that there was actually another purple lightning sky above this purple lightning sky. Moreover, the power of the next purple lightning sky was even stronger and more difficult to break through than the first purple lightning sky. Not only that, at this moment, Long Yu was completely immersed in a world of lightning, and purple lightning rumbled in all directions. As far as the eye could see, apart from the purple lightning, there was nothing else in his line of sight. Fortunately, with his balance control, Long Yu managed to find some of the weaker spots. Of course, not every spot of the purple lightning sky was equally powerful. Of course, there were strong and weak spots. Long Yu was in this lightning domain, and just as he was about to condense the fallen dark star to destroy the entire lightning domain's core, he suddenly felt a familiar power control his entire body. Electromagnetic force. Yi Ziwei's electromagnetic force appeared again, once again controlling Long Yu's entire body. At the same time, Long Yu saw the endless purple lightning around him converging towards him. Unlike the first time when he was sucked into the ball of lightning, this time, the lightning took the initiative to strike the trapped Long Yu. Moreover, the power of the purple lightning condensed by the Imperial Way technique, purple lightning sky, was definitely stronger than the previous ball of lightning. Unless I use my trump card, I won't be able to block this move. With a thought, Long Yu immediately smiled and activated his ruler's life token. With a flash of light, Long Yu admitted defeat and was teleported out of the space. He killed it. Yi Ziwei frowned slightly when she sensed that Long Yu had admitted defeat. Although she had expected Long Yu to admit defeat, she still felt that it was too early for Long Yu to admit defeat. She hadn't even used her final move, and Long Yu was already unable to hold on. Actually, it wasn't a problem if she thought about it carefully. The Imperial Way technique, purple lightning sky, was more than enough to deal with a mid-Emperor Realm expert, let alone a mere Long Yu who had just stepped into the Emperor Realm. However, Yi Ziwei still felt that Long Yu's performance this time was a bit strange. You've hidden your strength quite well. Yi Ziwei was well aware of this, but she wasn't afraid of Long Yu. However, no matter how well you've hidden your strength, you won't be able to defeat me when the time comes, unless your martial realm reaches a higher level. Unfortunately, I will break through to the Emperor Realm after the end of the Emperor Realm. By then, you'll still be no match for me. Yi Ziwei thought to herself as she was teleported out of the space. She was greeted by the smiling faces of 3rd Senior Brother Ji Bai and 9th Senior Brother Huang Zaishan, as well as the attention of some other senior brothers and sisters. The battle between Long Yu and Yi Ziwei could be said to be the focus of the entire nation. Naturally, after Yi Ziwei returned, many people came up to ask her. Most importantly, it was about Long Yu's strength. Long Yu's basic strength isn't very strong, but his techniques are very strange. Others must be careful if they encounter him, Yi Ziwei said honestly. Zhi Bai and Huang Zaishan didn't agree with her. What can an early Emperor Realm cultivator do? I won't give him a chance if I encounter him. Chapter 892. The battle between Long Yu and Yi Ziwei ended just like that. The battle ended very quickly, and the result was the same as most people had expected. Long Yu admitted defeat to Yi Ziwei. Both of them were personal disciples of the five emperors, but in terms of martial arts realm, Long Yu was 2 whole levels lower than Yi Ziwei. The gap between them was quite big. Long Yu had mastered the divine text of the origin, but so did Yi Ziwei. Long Yu had comprehended the methods of the Emperor Dao, but so had Yi Ziwei. Apart from their martial Dao realms, Yi Ziwei was on par with Long Yu in many other aspects, so it was normal for this battle to have such a result. However, most people had neglected one point, and that was battle weapons and elixirs. There was no rule that prohibited the use of elixirs in the battle between the strongest king realm and strongest emperor realm. But generally speaking, no one would take elixirs in such a situation, because it was just a competition, unless the ranking of the competition was related to many things. For example, in the final battle of the strongest king realm, in order to compete for the first place, some people would take elixirs that could temporarily increase their strength. In the entire strongest king realm competition, only the first place was worth fighting for. It was a pity that the final battle of the strongest king realm competition was between Long Yu and Shi Yingwu. In the end, Long Yu admitted defeat, so naturally no one would take any elixirs. It was the same in the competition between the strongest emperor realm cultivators. When it came to the top 10 positions, some elixirs that could temporarily increase one's strength would be taken by many people in order to obtain a crucial victory. Therefore, it was very important to prepare some elixirs that could temporarily increase one's strength before the competition, for martial cultivators who wanted to reach the top 10. Of course, Yi Ziwei also had such elixirs, but compared to Long Yu, it was definitely a lot weaker. Long Yu still had 9 archaic supreme grade and supreme grade elixirs on him. Once he took them, his strength would increase by at least 5 to 6 times in a short period of time. This was an extremely terrifying effect. As for Yi Ziwei and the others, they would at most be able to obtain an ancient supreme grade pill like the Mirage Ghost Pill, which could temporarily increase their strength by 3 times. In terms of elixirs, Long Yu absolutely surpassed anyone else. At a critical moment, if it was necessary, Long Yu would definitely not hold back. As for combat weapons, it would already be considered very good for most people to have an ancient combat weapon. An ancient high-rank combat weapon was the best combat weapon that most people could get their hands on. Even so, it was extremely hard to find. However, not only did Long Yu possess a top-grade ancient Void Nether Dragon Blade, but he also possessed a top-grade Archean Ancient Dragon Bone Pagoda. This was something that he had been concealing. Once the Ancient Dragon Skeleton Tower was activated, it would definitely be unstoppable. Other than combat weapons and elixirs, there were also martial skills. In this aspect, Long Yu was definitely superior to anyone else. Even the direct disciples of the 5 emperors would not be able to cultivate an ancient high-grade martial skill. As for an Archean martial skill, even the 5 emperors themselves might not have seen it before. As for Long Yu, he had cultivated the ancient supreme grade Fallen Dark Star, as well as an Archean body tempering martial skill, Death Realm Body Tempering. Basically, other than martial realm, Long Yu completely surpassed the other participants in every other aspect. Not to mention, he had also cultivated a secret martial skill that allowed him to control everything on the battlefield at any time. He was basically undefeatable. If Yi Ziwei's strength was only what she showed on the surface, I would be able to defeat her with my current martial realm. Even if she was holding back, I would still be able to suppress her as long as I reached the mid-stage Emperor realm. This was the conclusion that Long Yu had reached after his battle with Yi Ziwei. This gave Long Yu a very intuitive understanding of the top experts in the current competition. This was the use of probing battles, and the purpose of this battle was not limited to just that. When Long Yu admitted defeat to Yi Ziwei, his undefeatable legend was finally broken. Many people were originally afraid of Long Yu in the depths of their hearts, but now, most of them no longer had this layer of fear in their hearts. They had regained the confidence to face Long Yu. After all, from the battle just now, it seemed that Long Yu was not undefeatable. In the next moment, a peak Emperor Realm expert from the 6 sects and 10 nations was arranged for Long Yu to fight. Without a doubt, Long Yu accepted this battle. Ha ha! Watch me beat up Long Yu. The middle-aged Emperor Realm expert from the crazy Immortal Empire was overjoyed as he directly accepted the battle. Since Long Yu admitted defeat to Yi Ziwei, it could be seen that Long Yu would also lose. As for this middle-aged man from the crazy Immortal Empire, his battle prowess surpassed that of the 9 Sons sect's Qiao Shankui. It seemed that Long Yu had spent quite a bit of time dealing with Sparrow Mountain Chief. The result of this battle was obvious, wasn't it? Go, this kid's limelight is too high. We need to suppress him. This kid just lost a Lei Emperor's personal disciple. He must be feeling a bit frustrated and may not be able to display his full strength. You should have no problem defeating this kid with your strength. You must make our crazy Immortal Empire proud in this battle. The people of the crazy Immortal Empire were very much looking forward to this battle. The middle-aged man who was being looked forward to was naturally very pleased with himself. He accepted the battle and was transported to the battlefield. Long Yu was transported to the battlefield. This was a vast grassland with a radius of 100 miles. There were no obstructions, and one could see things from 100 miles away with the naked eye. Long Yu's probing was almost over, so there was no need to waste any more time in this battle. Therefore, he activated balance control and completely concealed his presence. He also used spirit concealment. This way, Long Yu completely disappeared from everyone's sight. Whether it was the naked eye or perception, it was difficult to detect Long Yu's presence. When facing Yi Ziwei, Long Yu didn't use this method because he wanted to test her strength. But now, Long Yu wanted to end this battle quickly. The peak Emperor Realm expert from the crazy Immortal Empire was full of confidence after entering the battlefield. He activated his detection ability and probed the surroundings, but his expression quickly changed. No one. His detection divine art spread out over 100 miles and even occupied the entire battle space. However, he couldn't detect a single trace of Long Yu's aura. It was as if Long Yu wasn't transported to this space at all. What's going on? The man from the crazy Immortal Empire frowned. He knew that people wouldn't disappear for no reason. Even if Long Yu surrendered immediately after entering the battlefield, he should have received a notification from the king's life token. After all, he was a peak Emperor Realm expert. He quickly became vigilant and guessed that Long Yu might have a very powerful concealment method. As long as Long Yu appeared and ambushed him, he would immediately counterattack and carry out his plan to beat up Long Yu. However, as time gradually flowed by, Long Yu still hadn't appeared, causing the man to feel somewhat puzzled. However, he was, after all, an experienced fighter. He didn't make any rash moves and continued to hover in the air, vigilant against any sneak attacks from Long Yu. If he could conceal himself, he would have chosen to do so as well. That would be a stalemate at most. Unfortunately, he didn't know any concealment methods and could only hover in the air as a target. Suddenly, a black shadow appeared in front of him. It turned into a pitch-black blade and stabbed towards his chest. "Come at me," the man from the crazy Immortal Empire shouted. Divine runes erupted from his body and condensed into a huge palm that slammed towards the black shadow in front of him. The palm's momentum was like a rainbow, and its power was extremely shocking. It directly smashed the black shadow into pieces. However, this time, he discovered that this black shadow was only an afterimage of Long Yu. This caused him to be on high alert. His entire body shone with a brilliant light, and the Berserker god spirit transformed into a layer of armor, covering his entire body, protecting him. The man reacted very quickly, but he didn't know that his action was exactly what Long Yu wanted. If the man had chosen to run away, Long Yu might not have dared to act rashly. However, since the man dared to defend himself, Long Yu had countless ways to shatter his defense. 9 Serenity's heavenly light. A dense, pitch-black 9 Serenity's heavenly light instantly covered the entire sky, obscuring the audience's vision. No one knew what would happen inside the thick, pitch-black fog. Long Yu's attack began the moment the 9 Serenity's heavenly light was cast. Death Chi entanglement break. Dense death chi gushed out from Long Yu's body, directly enveloping the young man from the crazy, immortal empire. This death chi coiling body was a technique derived from cultivating the Death Realm body refinement technique to the large success stage. It could be used for both defense and offense. Defense could offset half the power of other people's attacks. Offense could also eliminate half of the opponent's defense. It was a very heaven-defying function. After all, it was a derivative of an archaic martial skill. Under the endless death chi entanglement, the defensive power of the man's mad battle armor was forcibly reduced by half. Then, Long Yu's attack really began. 9 Serenity's Dragon Breath. 9 Serenity's Dragon Breath. 9 Serenity's Dragon Breath. Breath after breath of King Level 9, Nether Dragon Breath erupted outwards. Within the 9 Nether Heavenly Light, that man was unable to use spatial divine runes to escape. He could only passively defend and couldn't even counterattack. This was because Long Yu's attacks came wave after wave, without any gaps at all. After 5 consecutive 9 Serenity's Dragon Breaths, the man couldn't defend anymore. His mad battle armor was completely corroded, and 9 Serenity's divine runes had already corroded his body. Infinite imprisonment. Fallen Darkstar condense. The final killing blow was still the same move that Long Yu had used before. He used infinite imprisonment to trap the opponent for a period of time, then condensed as many fallen Darkstars as possible to surround the opponent and kill him instantly. It took this man more than 2 breaths of time to break through infinite imprisonment, but the speed at which Long Yu condensed fallen Darkstars was more than twice as fast as it was a year ago. More than 700 fallen dark stars exploded in an instant. The terrifying power directly shocked the man, because the power of the explosion made him feel like his life was in danger. In a hurry, the man could only activate his King's Life token to register. If he didn't admit defeat, he would be seriously injured even if he didn't die in such an explosion. As this man admitted defeat, many spectators suddenly went into an uproar. Long Yu had won again, and in such a straightforward manner. First, he hid his body, and as long as he found an opportunity, he would not even give the opponent a chance to breathe and would directly kill him. Chapter 893. When Long Yu surrendered to Yi Ziwei. Many people felt that Long Yu's strength was only SOSO. However, this was entirely due to Yi Ziwei's heaven-defying strength. Yi Ziwei had the ability to force Long Yu to surrender, but no one else had the ability to do so. In fact, when facing Long Yu, the vast majority of people did not even have the ability to resist. Long Yu won 2 matches and surrendered 1, advancing to the second round of the strongest Emperor Realm cultivators. There were more than 20,000 cultivators left in the tournament, and they were all experts who had gone through the first round of eliminations. However, to Long Yu, as long as he didn't encounter an expert at Yi Ziwei's level, there was no difference in the strength of others. 3 days later, the second round began. Long Yu was immediately assigned to face a peak Emperor Realm expert from a remote region. This person seemed to be the emperor of that remote region's dynasty. Judging from his temperament, it was obvious that he had held a high position for a long time. His demeanor was dignified without being angry. Long Yu used the same old trick against this person. He concealed himself completely with balance control so that his opponent couldn't find him. Then, he suddenly launched a sneak attack. The series of attacks left his opponent with no way to fight back. In the end, he had no choice but to surrender. His next opponent was a peak Emperor Realm middle-aged woman from the Sioux family medicine hall. Long Yu used the same method to force his opponent to surrender. It was only after Long Yu's 2 victories in the second round came out that everyone came to their senses. Long Yu was definitely not someone to be trifled with. Although his strength seemed mediocre when he was facing Yi Ziwei, that was because Yi Ziwei was too strong. Now, when the others were facing Long Yu, they didn't even have the strength to retaliate. It was truly unbelievable. However, this was the truth. A junior who had just stepped into the initial stage of Emperor Realm was actually able to defeat a senior who had been famous for a long time. The consecutive victories caused everyone to take Long Yu seriously again. Long Yu was also constantly observing the battles of Yuan Xin, Black Knife, Yi Ziwei, and the others. He had a deeper understanding of his strongest opponents. Yi Ziwei didn't even use her trump card against her opponents. It seems like I'm putting a lot of pressure on her. Long Yu narrowed his eyes. He could see that Yi Ziwei had held back a lot in the other battles. Up until now, he could only determine the basic strength of these strongest opponents, but he still didn't know what their trump cards were. On the other hand, other people's understanding of Long Yu also stopped at a basic level. What Long Yu had shown so far was only what people had investigated a year ago. It was just that his level had increased. As for what new techniques Long Yu had obtained in the past year, no one knew. Only those who had fought against Long Yu felt that Long Yu was a bit strange. This person could easily see through the weaknesses of certain defensive methods, formations, and offensive methods. He seemed to have an extremely keen sense of power. However, the people of Shenwu world wouldn't be able to figure out what was going on even after a few hundred years. The 5th stage of balance control was undoubtedly useful in battle. The amount of world spirit energy required to cultivate this secret martial art was definitely enough for Long Yu to step into the late stage of Emperor Realm. It was easy to imagine just how terrifying the amount of world spirit energy required to cultivate balance control was. However, the effects of reaching the 5th stage were also quite good. It allowed Long Yu to gain the upper hand in a battle that should have been evenly matched. 2 days later, the 3rd round began. A total of 11,000 people participated in the 3rd round. Long Yu's first opponent was a genius from one of the 6 sects and 10 countries, the Water Moon Sword sect. He was at the peak of Emperor Realm and had once reached the 18th floor of the illusion world of the 5 emperors. His achievements were impressive and his talent was not low. Although this person's strength couldn't compare to Yuan Xin or Yi Ziwei, he still surpassed normal Emperor Realm peak martial cultivators and definitely had the strength to fight against an early-stage Emperor Realm cultivator. Long Yu spent quite a bit of effort to deal with this person. When Long Yu hit himself, this person also did the same. Unfortunately, Long Yu had balance control, so all camouflage and concealment were useless. He easily found his opponent and ambushed him. However, his opponent's swordsmanship was extremely powerful. He did not defend at the first moment, but instead used offense as defense, forcing Long Yu to break away from his never-ending state of attack. Now, he could only defend against his opponent's swordsmanship. An ancient grade sword technique, an ancient grade sword war weapon, and a peak 9th heaven divine ability, all of this put some pressure on Long Yu's defenses. Fortunately, he had the Fallen Dark Star and balance control, allowing Long Yu to block the opponent's attacks with the smallest amount of force. In the end, Long Yu found an opening in his opponent's attacks and used 9 Underworld Heavenly Light to envelop the opponent again. Then, he launched a series of attacks and forced the opponent to use the Life Medallion to defend himself and admit defeat. After that, Long Yu encountered the grandson of an elder of the Alliance of 5 Emperors. This young man's talent was quite good, and he was especially good at the power of spatial divine runes. He was extremely nimble in battle, and he was able to dodge many of Long Yu's attacks. Unfortunately, Long Yu found an opportunity to envelop him with 9 Underworld Heavenly Light, and this person was completely powerless. This was because 9 underworld heavenly lights sealed all the power of spatial divine runes. With the power that this person was best at sealed, how could he fight against Long Yu? As for dispersing the 9 underworld's heavenly light, he was able to do it. Unfortunately, before he could dispel the first piece of 9 underworld's heavenly light, Long Yu had already waved his hand and scattered the second piece. Unless he was able to disperse the 9 underworld's heavenly light at an extremely fast speed, he was bound to be trapped within the 9 underworld's heavenly light and face Long Yu's endless attacks. In the end, this person could only helplessly admit defeat. It could be seen that Long Yu's opponents weren't weak at all. In fact, if it were a life or death battle, Long Yu might not even be able to kill his opponent. Instead, it was very likely that his opponent would escape. However, this wasn't Long Yu's limit yet. Long Yu planned to advance 2 more rounds in his current state before making preparations for a breakthrough. Right now, his inner world had a circumference of 99,000 kilometers. As long as he could increase it to 50,000 kilometers, he would be able to step into the middle stage of the Emperor Realm. The transformed inner world would increase Long Yu's basic strength by at least 3 times. As long as Long Yu wanted a breakthrough, he could do so at any time. It just depended on whether or not it was necessary. Long Yu's consecutive victories caused many people's faces to darken. Originally, most people thought that Long Yu would be eliminated very quickly if he were to participate in a battle between the strongest Emperor Realm cultivators with his current state of having just stepped into the Emperor Realm. But now, Long Yu had undoubtedly slapped them in the face with reality. In the Tianqin dynasty, the Tianqin First Prince had already lost all hope in the current Long Yu. He had never imagined that Long Yu's strength had already reached such a level. Originally, the Tianqin First Prince was looking forward to his third brother and second sister killing Long Yu in the battle between the strongest King Realm cultivators. But now, he knew how laughable that thought was. Although his second sister was one of the strongest King Realm cultivators in the Tianqin dynasty, she couldn't even stand up to the people around Long Yu, let alone Long Yu. As the first prince of the Tianqin dynasty, his strength had reached the middle stage of the Emperor Realm. This was already quite impressive in the Tianqin dynasty. After all, he was only in his 20s. However, he had been eliminated in the first round of the strongest Emperor Realm cultivators. If he were to face Long Yu, he would definitely lose miserably. I'll let you escape back then. I didn't expect you to have grown to such a state now. The Tianqin First Prince was filled with regret and hatred. He remembered that he had once led his personal guards to invade the territory of the North Snow Dynasty in order to get rid of Long Yu and Shu Quan. Unfortunately, after a series of actions, not only did he fail to get rid of Long Yu and Shu Quan, but the two of them had gained the trust of the people of the Snowdance Corps instead. After losing that opportunity to get rid of Long Yu, he would forever lose the chance to kill Long Yu. Now, even if all the people of the Tianqin dynasty attacked together, they might not be able to touch a single hair on Long Yu's head. This feeling of not being able to take revenge was incomparably hopeless. And now, it was not only the people of the Tianqin dynasty who felt the same way as the Tianqin First Prince. There were many other forces who had enmity with Long Yu. For example, the Shenluo Empire. The person in charge of the Shenluo Empire now was the first prince of the middle stage Emperor Realm. He had originally expected his second brother to avenge his third brother in the strongest Emperor Realm cultivator competition, but his second brother was eliminated in the second round. Instead, Long Yu passed the third round and entered the fourth round. According to the strength that Long Yu had shown so far, ordinary people were no match for Long Yu, not to mention those at the peak of the Emperor Realm. Just the gap between the strongest Emperor Realm and the strongest Emperor Realm had allowed Long Yu to improve so much. After the strongest Emperor Realm, if Long Yu improved again, even if it was only by 1 realm, he would be able to fight against a middle stage Emperor Realm cultivator. At that point, no one in the entire Shenluo Empire would be able to subdue Long Yu, not even the first prince of the middle stage Emperor Realm. Originally, the first prince of the Shenluo Empire had thought that since Long Yu's cultivation realm had yet to increase, he would still have plenty of opportunities to kill Long Yu. However, he had never imagined that Long Yu's growth would be so heaven-defying. In such a short period of time, he had reached a level where he could fight against ordinary Emperor Realm cultivators. Despair. This was the feeling that struck the hearts of the people of the Shenluo Empire. Qin Changyu, the patriarch of the Qin clan in the sacred city of five emperors, was also in despair. Qin Changyu was shocked by Long Yu's battle prowess in the strongest emperor realm. There was no doubt that the current Qin Changyu was no longer Long Yu's opponent. Although Qin Changyu was an early-stage emperor realm cultivator, he was no match for Long Yu in other aspects. If he were to fight against Long Yu, he would lose miserably. Qin Changyu's face turned ashen when he thought of the battle to the death between him and Long Yu after the Martial God Conference. Chapter 894. Qin Zhongyu and Gongsun Rong were a little panicked, but the Water Moon Sword Master's power, which had turned into a beam of light, instantly turned into a bull-sized lightning bolt and rushed forward, drilling into the dense death chi. Yun Jinglei did not dare to underestimate this strange death chi. After all, from the previous battle, the death chi that Long Yu had condensed was a bit strange. When the bolt of lightning flew into the dense death chi, it was instantly weakened by half. When it rushed towards Long Yu again, Long Yu stretched out his hand and directly grabbed the bolt of lightning in his hand. Hand of 9 underworlds. Annihilation. Long Yu's arm suddenly projected out a white bone arm, covering his arm. With a heavy pinch, that lightning bolt was crushed and instantly disappeared without a trace. But in the next moment, Yun Jinglei's body was covered with the power of the Thunder Divine characters. He appeared behind Long Yu and raised his hands. Countless Thunder Divine characters condensed into a thunder cage, trapping Long Yu inside. Moreover, this thunder cage began to shrink, as if it would kill Long Yu in the end. Right now, Long Yu did not have a king's life token to protect his life. If he lost, only death awaited him. Long Yu's face showed a panicked expression. As the thunder cage continued to shrink, Long Yu could only use the barrier of death and death chi to defend against the thunder cage's damage to his body. Finally, the thunder cage shrunk to its limit. What followed was Yun Jinglei's maniacal laughter. Ha! Long Yu, did you never think that you would have such a day? This thunder cage is a superior grade ancient martial skill that I obtained from an ancient remnant. Even if you are proficient in divine runes of space, it is impossible for you to escape the control of this thunder cage. Now go die. Indeed, this thunder cage was very powerful. As long as he had enough time to use it, Long Yu would have no chance of escaping. Long Yu had already tried. Even if he used the path of 9 underworlds, he would not be able to escape from this thunder cage. However, did this Yun Jinglei think that he could kill Long Yu with just this? The panic on Long Yu's face was completely fake. Just as Yun Jinglei was laughing maniacally, Long Yu's hands instantly condensed the power of 2 divine runes. Source Grade Death Divine Rune and Source Grade Azura Divine Rune. Long Yu had completely comprehended the power of these 2 divine runes in the past year by transforming them into divine rune crystals. Moreover, under the guidance of the Death Envoy, he had successfully cultivated a second-grade divine chain technique. A god chain of second god chains could already be considered high-quality god chains. But in Shenwu world, let alone high-quality god chains, even medium-quality god chains were extremely rare. Even the 5 emperors had at most comprehended god chains of 4th or 5th god chains. As for god chains of second god chains, not even the 5 emperors had seen them before. Second god chains, Death Torment. The power of the 2 divine characters in Long Yu's hands exploded, forming a black light that pierced through the thunder cage and landed on Yun Jinglei's body. Yun Jinglei's maniacal laughter came to an abrupt stop. Of course, he found that he had been hit by a strange black light. But this black light didn't seem to have any destructive power, so he was a bit surprised. The lightning cage has been broken. Yun Jing Lei glanced at where Long Yu was and found that Long Yu had escaped the thunder cage through the opening created by the black light. And in Long Yu's eyes, there was a mocking expression. Impossible! How did you escape from the thunder cage? Yun Jing Lei's expression changed. What's impossible about it? Long Yu's face was full of mockery. The death torment of the second god chains had already hit Yun Jing Lei. The power of the death torment had already seeped into his body. Even if Long Yu didn't make a move, Yun Jing Lei had no chance of surviving. As soon as Long Yu said that, Yun Jing Lei felt that something was wrong with his body. In his internal world, there seemed to be a strange and eerie power that began to seep everywhere. It quickly spread out and covered his entire body. Every part of his body had a bad feeling. This feeling was hard to describe. If he had to use words to describe it, it would be that every part of his body was in the process of dying. For example, he could feel that his arms were dying and losing feeling. His eyes were dying, and he couldn't see anything. His dantian was dead, and he couldn't use any power in his body. Even the power in his body was dying, turning him into a cripple. What is happening? Am I hallucinating? Yun Jing Lei didn't believe that Long Yu had the ability to turn him into a cripple. The fear in his heart made him subconsciously call out to the ruler's life, token, and surrender to save his life. Long Yu didn't stop him. He watched as Yun Jing Lei was protected by the ruler's life token as he was transported out of this space. He knew very well what would happen to those who were hit by the death torment of the death torment. The most powerful thing about the divine rune of death was that it could affect the opponent's body. Even a ruler's life token could not save the opponent's life. For example, the Taiwu Empire's genius Gu Feichen, who was corroded by the divine rune of death, could only beg Shi Yingwu to save his life. This was an unsolvable method. Shi Yingwu knew it, and so did Long Yu. Though the method was different, the effect was similar. The death torment of the second god chains was relatively easy to deal with a defenseless peak emperor realm martial cultivator. Of course, if the opponent was more cautious, then Long Yu's method would have a hard time working. This was because the death torment of the death torment was only effective against living beings. It could be easily blocked by the power of the divine rune of death. Chapter 895. Other than Yun Jing Lei himself, the rest of the spectators had no idea what was going on. No one knew what was going on. The two were fighting well. So why did Yun Jing Lei suddenly admit defeat? Since he had activated the king's life tablet, then Yun Jing Lei must have felt that his life was in danger. Otherwise, he would not have used the king's life tablet to admit defeat. After all, from the previous situation, the hatred between the two was very deep. There was no way Yun Jing Lei would let Long Yu go so easily. The only explanation was that Long Yu had used some hidden technique to make Yun Jing Lei feel like he was about to die. And no one knew what this technique was. Many people saw that at the critical moment, a black ray of light shot out from the lightning cage and hit Yun Jing Lei. But then, there was no other reaction. If that was the case, didn't that mean that Long Yu's technique could kill without leaving a trace? Many people who watched this battle became even more fearful of Long Yu. As for the despicable Yun Jing Lei from the High Clouds Empire, very few people paid attention to what happened to him, except for those who had a special hatred for Long Yu. After the battle between Long Yu and Yun Jing Lei ended, both sides were transported out. In the courtyard where the people from the High Clouds Empire were at, several groups of uninvited guests came. Extreme Martial Empire, Ninth Sun Sect, Water Moon Sword Sect. These three great forces from the 6 sects and 10 countries all sent people to check on Yun Jing Lei's current condition and to find out what Long Yu had done. But when they arrived at the High Clouds Empire's side, they came to a shocking conclusion. Yun Jing Lei was dead. Although the king's life tablet protected Yun Jing Lei as he was transported out of the battlefield, the power of the Death Realm's divine chains had seeped into his entire body. Even the king's life tablet could not protect him from such an attack. The powerhouses from the three great forces all looked at Yun Jing Lei's body. They could only feel a thick aura of death but they could not figure out what Long Yu had done. Only the faces of the people from the Taiwu Empire darkened slightly. This was because they could tell that this technique was clearly an upgraded version of what their empire's genius, Gu Feichen, had suffered. Gu Feichen was corroded by Shi Yongwu's deathly aura, but he still persisted for a long time. He could even wait until the end of the strongest king realm and plead for her to eliminate the deathly aura in his body. But this Yun Jinglei, in such a short period of time, could not be more dead. It seemed that Long Yu's methods were even more terrifying than Shi Yongwu's. Seniors, that fellow Long Yu's methods are extremely ruthless, and he's ferocious to the extreme. We must annihilate him, otherwise he'll surely become a calamity to the world. Emperor Yunwan's face was full of grief and indignation. He had no other choice now. Although he was a martial emperor, he was only a middle-stage martial emperor. His current strength was not much different from his son, Yun Jinglei. Since Yun Jinglei was killed by Long Yu, even if he personally attacked, he would not be able to defeat Long Yu. Instead, he would be killed by Long Yu. With no other choice, Emperor Yunwan could only place his hopes on the 5 emperors' holy city and the 6 sects and 10 countries' forces. After all, Long Yu and these sects and empires that came to investigate the situation still had enmity. Emperor Yunwan was very clear about this. Don't worry, I won't be at ease if I don't get rid of this person. The Taiwu Empire's elder said to Emperor Yunwan and turned to leave. Of course, Long Yu had to be eliminated, but this had nothing to do with Emperor Yunwan. In fact, the Taiwu Empire was also very disdainful of Yun Jinglei's actions. Yun Jinglei wanted to fight to the death with Long Yu, but in the end, he kept the king's life plate. He wanted to keep his life. Unfortunately, his actions seemed to have angered Long Yu, causing Long Yu to use a method that he had never used before and directly killed him. Even the king's life plate could not save him. Yun Jinglei reaped what he sowed. No one would sympathize with him, even if the enemy of an enemy was a friend. The Cloudy Cloud's empire's current strength was far from being able to befriend the 6 sects and 10 countries' forces. Emperor Yunwan was the strongest person in the empire, but he was only a middle-stage martial emperor. Such an existence could only be an ordinary outer elder in the 6 sects and 10 countries, or a deputy general of an army. The difference between the two was too great. The Taiwu Empire and the Water Moon Sword sect only sent people over to see Long Yu's new method, nothing more. They had no sympathy for Emperor Yunwan. After the battle between Long Yu and Yun Jinglei ended, Long Yu was certain that Yun Jinglei would die, so he didn't take it to heart. However, the Cloudy Clouds Empire, the Shenluo Empire, and the Tianqin Empire were like flies buzzing around Long Yu, making him rather annoyed. It seemed that after this grand meeting, it was time to kick these 3 out. Coincidentally, Yu Hanxin was about to step into the Emperor realm, and it was time for the North Snow Empire to expand. Now that it was the 4th round, there were still thousands of people fighting, so the probability of meeting someone he knew was not high. Next, Long Yu was matched against a peak Emperor realm cultivator from another country. This person's strength was extraordinary. Although he wasn't as strong as Yun Jinglei, he wasn't too far off. Anyone who could make it this far was a fairly strong cultivator. Unfortunately, this person met Long Yu and was quickly defeated by Long Yu. Then, the competition entered the 5th round, and only 2,000 people were left. At this level, Long Yu felt that his initial Emperor realm cultivation was a bit strenuous. If he didn't increase his martial realm, he would need to use one of his trump cards against any random opponent. In this case, by the time he reached the end of the competition, Long Yu would have used up all of his trump cards. Therefore, there were still 2 days before the 5th round began, so Long Yu left the 10,000-layer space and went to the Azura Ancient Temple. Under the protection of the Envoy of Death, he took the last unbounded supreme rank pill. The energy of heaven and earth contained in this pill was too much for Long Yu to bear. His inner world rapidly expanded from 990,000 miles to 1 million miles, allowing Long Yu to step into the middle stage of the Emperor realm. As Long Yu's martial realm increased, the power born in his inner world tempered his entire body, increasing his basic strength by 3 times. And the effects of the unbounded supreme rank pill had only just begun. His inner world began to expand rapidly, from 1 million miles to 2 million miles to 3 million miles. Even the envoy of death was a bit surprised by the pill's effects. Ordinary unbounded supreme rank pills can only expand a middle-stage Emperor Realm cultivator's inner world to 3 million miles. But this pill's effects are far from over. It looks like this sufferer's pill has been stored in the wreckage of the small world for too long and absorbed too much spirit energy. The envoy of death sighed with emotion. Unbounded supreme rank pills were just that heaven-defying. As long as one didn't use it until the last moment, they would never know how much spirit energy was contained in it. Moreover, the heaven and earth spiritual chi contained in this pill was extremely pure. The effect of absorbing this heaven and earth spiritual chi to cultivate was definitely 10 or even 100 times better than cultivating naturally or taking other pills. Most importantly, Long Yu's improvement didn't have any side effects. As long as he trained a bit, he wouldn't experience any instability in his realm. For 1 million miles, 5 million miles, Long Yu's inner world continued to expand. When the unbounded supreme rank pill's effects ended, his inner world had expanded to a radius of 8 million miles. This was an extremely terrifying number. Within a radius of 10 million li, that was the standard of a late-stage Emperor Realm cultivator. Once Long Yu reached late-stage Emperor Realm, he could begin breaking through to Emperor Realm and prepare to become one of the strongest people in Shenwu world. At that time, with Long Yu's various means, he wouldn't be able to find a match even if he swept across the entire Shenwu world. Therefore, now that his inner world had expanded to 8 million miles in one go, the strength of his heart realm had increased by 8 times. In terms of overall strength, Long Yu's strength had increased by at least 5 times after taking the unbounded supreme rank pill. After all, the strength of one's heart realm couldn't be directly stacked on top of one's strength. The most important thing was still the increase in one's martial realm. However, there was another great benefit for Long Yu with the increase in strength of his heart realm, and that was the strengthening of his origin power. His origin power was born from fusing with the true spirit of the dragon of 9 underworlds in his inner world. Once he used it, he could easily intimidate his opponent. As for how long it lasted, that was related to the martial realm of both parties. Now that Long Yu's strength of heart realm had increased, the duration of his origin power intimidating his opponent would also increase. This would become one of his trump cards in the competition between the strongest Emperor Realm cultivators. Moreover, now that the true spirit of the dragon of 9 underworlds had fused with his inner world and become his origin power, he no longer had the disadvantage of having to use it once a month like before. As long as Long Yu wanted to use it, he could use it at any time. However, if he used it on the same person consecutively for a short period of time, the effect would be halved, just like when he used the same pill. But this didn't stop Long Yu from listing it as one of his strongest means. The intimidation of the 9 underworld dragons' true spirit was a complete and utter intimidation. When the opponent was intimidated, they wouldn't be able to think about anything, and they wouldn't be able to use any methods to resist. It could be said that once they were intimidated, they would be at the mercy of the 9 underworld dragon. Long Yu was even more confident now that his martial Dao realm and basic strength had improved. Even though his opponents in the next round of the strongest Emperor Realm competition would be even stronger, Long Yu wasn't afraid in the slightest. In fact, his opponents were even easier to deal with than before. This was the importance of martial realm. Although Long Yu could challenge those with higher cultivation realms, he couldn't surpass them by too many levels. If his own martial realm increased, then he would truly be invincible. 2 days later, Long Yu returned to the battlefield. His breakthrough in martial realm in such a short period of time had undoubtedly shocked all the forces that were paying attention to Long Yu. He was actually at the middle stage of the Emperor Realm. Chapter 896. Long Yu had stepped into the Middle Emperor realm after consuming the unbounded supreme grade pill. He wasn't far from the late Emperor realm either. Such a speed naturally shocked everyone. Even geniuses like Black Knife and Yi Ziwei didn't have such a speed of improvement. Although Black Knife and Yi Ziwei had reached the peak of the late Emperor realm before the age of 20, it took them 3 years to go from the initial Emperor realm to the late Emperor realm. But now, Long Yu had broken through from the late Emperor realm to the Middle Emperor realm in less than a month. He wasn't far from the late Emperor realm either. Even the 5 emperors had never heard of such a speed of improvement. What kind of fortuitous encounter did this kid have? Countless people were guessing in their hearts. Of course, Long Yu knew that his return would attract so much attention, but he didn't care. The 5th round of the strongest Emperor realm was about to begin. The opponent he had arranged for him was someone he had met before, Su Jianbai, the young genius of the Su clan's medicine hall. He had always been following behind the witch, Su Ningguang. Long Yu had a good impression of Su Jianbai. After all, Su Jianbai was an undefeatable expert to Long Yu back then. But now, Long Yu wasn't afraid of Su Jianbai at all. The two of them were teleported to the battlefield, which was a winding cave. Both of them randomly appeared in a random place in the cave. Many people were already familiar with the terrain. The walls of this cave could be destroyed, and it couldn't be shielded from detection abilities. For martial cultivators, this cave was practically non-existent. However, martial cultivators could make good use of it in battle. If used well, they might be able to launch a beautiful ambush. It wasn't impossible to turn defeat into victory. Of course, this was only possible for ordinary martial cultivators. If they were facing Long Yu, it would be impossible. This was because the balance control of the 5th level allowed Long Yu to know everything around him like the back of his hand. No one in the Emperor realm had the ability to ambush Long Yu. Both sides were teleported into the winding cave, and the battle began. Long Yu used the shadow eye at the first moment. Combined with the balance control, he easily understood the situation in the cave. He also concealed himself completely. It was impossible for an Emperor Realm detection ability to discover Long Yu's location. Next, it was time for Long Yu to perform. Su Jianbai had wanted to fight Long Yu for a long time, but he didn't expect this day to come so soon. The first time he saw Long Yu was when Long Yu was in the illusion realm of the 5 emperors. Long Yu was only in the divinity realm. The difference between them was like heaven and earth. Su Jianbai felt that no matter how talented Long Yu was, he would only be qualified to fight him after 3 to 5 years. He might not even be able to catch up to him in 3 to 5 years. After all, it was very likely that he would be in the Emperor realm by then. But Long Yu would step into the Emperor realm in 3 to 5 years? That was simply wishful thinking. However, Su Jianbai never expected that Long Yu would advance from the divinity realm to the middle stage Emperor realm in just a year's time. Moreover, he had become his opponent in the competition of the strongest Emperor realm. Su Jianbai felt a little irritated when he recalled the strange smile Su Ningguang had shown him before the battle. Without a doubt, Su Jianbai had feelings for Su Ningguang. Although Su Ningguang had long been a late-stage Emperor realm expert, she was actually not much older than Su Jianbai. Su Jianbai had always had a good impression of Su Ningguang. When the news that his opponent would be Long Yu spread, Su Ningguang actually guessed that he wouldn't be Long Yu's opponent. What a joke. No matter how strong Long Yu is, it's impossible that I, Su Jianbai, am not his opponent. Su Jianbai thought to himself. This person had thoughts about the top 3 of the strongest Emperor realm. After all, he was the most talented person in the younger generation of the Su clan and had received the Su Medicine Hall's full support. Although he hadn't personally explored the ancient ruins, he had obtained many precious items from the ancient ruins, including combat weapons, pills, and martial techniques. Su Jianbai's opponents were at the level of Black Knife, Yi Ziwei, and Yu Hanxin. He didn't care about Long Yu at all. Although Long Yu was a little strange, Su Jianbai wasn't afraid of him. What Su Jianbai was more apprehensive about was that Long Yu had stepped into the middle stage Emperor realm at this time. His strength was obviously stronger than before. Before this, Long Yu could already defeat extraordinary opponents like Sparrow Mountain Chief and Yun Jinglei. If the current Long Yu were to encounter those opponents again, he would probably be able to finish them off in a single move. Long Yu's increase in strength was not good news for Su Jianbai. Although he was very confident in himself, Su Jianbai was still very wary of Long Yu in the depths of his heart. He was teleported into the battlefield. When he discovered that he was in a winding cave, he frowned slightly and probed with his detection methods. However, he discovered that there was no trace of Long Yu within a radius of 50 kilometers. How is this possible? Su Jianbai frowned slightly. He held the ancient rank longsword combat weapon in his hand and was ready to fight at any time. At the same time, he took out another ancient rank ancient mirror combat weapon. He had obviously thought of Long Yu's previous fighting style. It was obvious that Long Yu's concealment methods were outstanding, but Su Jianbai didn't expect that even he couldn't sense Long Yu's presence. He had no choice but to take out the ancient rank ancient mirror combat weapon. The ancient mirror combat weapon's function was to deduce the current state of a target in real time. Originally, deduction was an ability that only emperors possessed. However, this ancient rank ancient mirror combat weapon also had the ability to deduce, and its deduction speed was much faster than that of ordinary emperors. Moreover, once the deduction was completed, it could even track the target for a certain period of time. After 10 breaths, a figure indeed appeared on the ancient mirror. It was Long Yu's figure. The corners of Su Jianbai's lips curled up slightly. Found you. Immediately after, Su Jianbai brandished his long sword and directly broke through the cave's walls. He charged straight towards where Long Yu was. Long Yu was currently 30 kilometers away from Su Jianbai. Of course, he also sensed Su Jianbai's actions. He immediately knew that his plan to hide and launch a sneak attack had failed. I didn't expect Su Jianbai to have such a combat weapon. Looks like I can't be too careless when I'm training outside in the future. Even if I have balance control and can shield my eyes and senses, I can't shield myself from deduction. Vigilance rose in Long Yu's heart. He wasn't vigilant against Su Jianbai, but he was vigilant against his previous mentality. It was obvious that no matter how brilliant his methods were, it was impossible for him to hide from everyone's detection. This was what Long Yu was currently thinking about. Previously, he felt that as long as he concealed himself and launched sneak attacks, it wouldn't be a problem for him to reach the top 10 of the strongest Emperor realm, of course. It didn't matter if he was discovered. It was just that Long Yu had lost the initiative. If the other party wanted to face him head-on, then he would face him head-on. Long Yu had some impression of Su Jianbai. Moreover, before the Emperor Realm competition began, there were rumors that this person was one of the martial cultivators who would definitely enter the top 10. Long Yu didn't expect that his first battle would be against an opponent who was second only to Yi Ziwei. Fortunately, he had broken through to the middle stage Emperor Realm in advance. Otherwise, he would have exposed many things in this battle. Under Su Jianbai's destruction, the entire cave collapsed rapidly. The distance between the two parties shortened rapidly. Long Yu was long prepared for battle. Hundreds of ancient shadows had already condensed and formed an encirclement, waiting for Su Jianbai's arrival on the spot. Boom! With a loud bang, the cave wall not far from Long Yu was broken open by someone's tremendous strength. Immediately after, a pale white sword ray arrived with a loud bang, directly attacking Long Yu's face. He actually recognized me directly. Long Yu was slightly surprised, but he didn't retreat. He merely raised his hand, and the hundreds of ancient shadows that he had prepared in advance instantly rushed out and met the pale white sword ray head-on. The Netherworld divine characters, Death divine characters, and Azura divine characters. 3 types of divine characters erupted instantly and tangled together with the pale white sword ray. If it was an ordinary peak Emperor Realm martial cultivator, more than half of his strength would be directly consumed when faced with hundreds of ancient shadows. However, Su Jianbai was obviously much stronger than an ordinary peak Emperor Realm martial cultivator. Pale white sword art, chaotic universe. The long sword in Su Jianbai's hand danced with a loud rumble, activating his ancient high-grade sword technique in an instant. Countless sword rays condensed from all directions and rained down like a downpour. In just 2 breaths' time, the hundreds of primordial shadows were wiped clean. Long Yu admit defeat. Su Jianbai's figure seemed to have merged into one with a pale, white sword ray. He laughed loudly, and countless pale, white sword rays swept over from all directions, descending towards Long Yu. This is the sovereign way. Long Yu was slightly surprised when he sensed the power of the countless pale, white sword rays around him. He didn't expect Su Jianbai to also comprehend the sovereign way. No wonder this person was said to have the strength to step into the top 10 of the strongest emperor realm. However, this alone wasn't enough to deal with Long Yu. Aura of Death. Fallen Dark Star. Long Yu condensed hundreds of fallen dark stars in an instant and sent them flying in all directions. Every fallen dark star locked onto a pale, white sword ray and directly targeted the weakest point of the sword ray before exploding loudly. In this way, the power of the surrounding pale white sword rays was directly weakened by more than half. When they attacked Long Yu through the aura of death, the remaining power was actually unable to break through Long Yu's physical defenses. Su Jianbai's expression changed slightly. He originally wanted to defeat Long Yu with a thunderous momentum right from the start, but he didn't expect that he would not be able to defeat Long Yu even after using the sovereign way. Instead, Long Yu seemed to be able to withstand his attacks with ease. Where did this method of weakening attacks come from? Chapter 897. Almost everyone was watching the battle between Long Yu and Su Jianbai. In reality, from the moment Long Yu registered to participate in the Emperor Realm competition, everyone's attention was locked onto Long Yu. Once Long Yu started fighting, almost everyone would be watching. Many forces in the sacred city of 5 emperors were very familiar with Su Jianbai's strength. At this moment, when they saw that Long Yu had actually withstood Su Jianbai's first wave of attack so easily, their expressions changed instantly. Without a doubt, these people knew that Su Jianbai's strength was not bad. He was even qualified to enter the top 10 of the Emperor Realm. Su Jianbai's kingly Dao technique was extremely terrifying. The boundless sword chi that filled the sky made it impossible for his opponent to dodge. Its penetrative power was extremely strong, and ordinary Emperor Realm martial cultivators could not withstand it at all. In the previous battles, Su Jianbai rarely used this move, but once he did, his opponent would definitely activate the ruler's life tablet to admit defeat. However, no one expected Long Yu to be able to withstand this move so easily, and it blinded the eyes of most of the people. On the other hand, many kingly Dao secret realm martial cultivators from other places did not know Su Jianbai very well. They could not see the details of this battle. They only knew that Long Yu had actually entered the middle stage of Emperor Realm, and his overall strength had become even more terrifying. Pale white sword art, heaven-defying vault. Su Jianbai did not stop at all. After his kingly Dao technique was blocked, he continued to raise his hand and unleashed an ancient upper-grade sword art. More sword chi swept towards Long Yu. This time, the sword chi even brought about a whirlpool of air, pulling Long Yu's entire body and making it difficult for him to escape. However, Long Yu did not choose to escape when faced with this technique. Instead, he continued to block it head-on. He did the same thing as before. Countless fallen dark stars flew out continuously and bombarded the weak points of the sword chi, weakening the might of the sword chi to the greatest extent. Finally, through the weakening effect of the entanglement of the deathly aura, the sword chi was still unable to harm Long Yu in the slightest. It's my turn now. Long Yu blocked this attack without showing any mercy. The 9 nether divine characters instantly burst out from his body. 7 white bone arms appeared in the air and grabbed towards Su Jianbai from different directions. Kingly Dao, 9 nether hand. Evil demon retreat. Su Jianbai's expression did not change in the face of the 7 awe-inspiring white bone arms. He He showed no fear as he condensed a series of light, divine characters on the long sword in his hand. The entire place was illuminated, a kingly Dao technique. Su Jianbai's move was actually a royal technique that was activated by the divine characters of light. Faced with this demonic retreat, the 7 skeletal arms actually suffered from varying degrees of corrosion. When they neared Su Jianbai, they were easily shattered by the pale sword qi that Su Jianbai brandished his sword. Up until now, the fight between both parties could be said to be a complete tie. Su Jianbai was unable to injure Long Yu, and Long Yu was unable to injure Su Jianbai. To Su Jianbai, this was an unacceptable situation. In his imagination, Long Yu should not have been able to withstand his swift and fierce attacks. Domain of Light, Divine Light, Sword Explosion. Su Jianbai waved the sword in his hand. The entire place was instantly enveloped by divine light characters. The power of these divine light characters condensed into sword light and shot towards Long Yu. They exploded when they got close to Long Yu, not giving Long Yu any chance to weaken them. Countless sword qi exploded, enveloping Long Yu's entire body in a world of sword light. Barrier of Death, Aura of Death. Long Yu still executed these 2 moves. His entire body transformed into a jet-black ray of light that flew along a path of the 9th hell as he tore his way out of the encirclement. At the same time, 9th hell divine scriptures condensed from his entire body, and they actually gradually replaced the radiant divine scriptures in the surroundings and completely corroded them. 9 nether heavenly light, go! Long Yu's Dantian jolted, and 9 nether divine characters poured out instantly. They occupied the entire cave like the Milky Way falling from the 9 heavens and enveloped Su Jianbai. 9 nether blade edge, shadow kill skill. 2 killing moves were unleashed instantly. In the pitch-black 9 nether heavenly light, countless pitch-black sharp blades swept towards Su Jianbai. Sword wings protection. Su Jianbai held the sword in his hand with a stern expression. He condensed countless sword lights that seemed to grow wings and surrounded himself. None of the pitch-black sharp blades could get close to him as they were all blocked by the sword wings protection. Immediately after, the sword wings protection expanded and formed a pair of pure and holy snow-white sword qi wings. The pair of sword qi wings flapped abruptly and gradually dispersed the extremely stable 9 nether heavenly light. Heavenly Sword Divine Chain. Immediately after, Su Jianbai slashed down. A 5th grade divine chain broke through the void and slashed at the top of Long Yu's head. The destructive power of this strike was extremely terrifying. Compared to the chaotic attacks of sword qi that filled the sky earlier, the Heavenly Sword Divine Chain condensed all its power into 1 point. In terms of destructive power alone, it was much stronger than his Regal Way technique. 9 Nether Dragon Breath. Upon seeing this, Long Yu merely opened his mouth, and a pitch-black dragon breath shot out from his mouth directly towards the Heavenly Sword Divine Chain. Both parties collided in midair, and a terrifying explosion rang out. Air currents soared, and the entire cave gradually collapsed because of it. The 9 Nether Dragon Breath had been elevated to Regal Way, and its power was extremely shocking. It was not inferior to Su Jianbai's 5th grade Divine Chain in the slightest. When both parties collided, they actually canceled each other out. Meanwhile, both Long Yu and Su Jianbai were forced back by this collision, and each of them retreated hundreds of meters away. Looks like I can't deal with you without using some special techniques. Su Jianbai's eyes were burning, and the ancient high-grade sword in his hand suddenly flickered with a dim blue light. Then, he actually tossed the sword out. Little B asterisk TCH, restrain him. I'm going to set up a sword formation. The longsword immediately let out a wong-wong sound and directly flew towards Long Yu. It could be seen that this ancient high-grade longsword had already developed its own consciousness. In that case, Su Jianbai and the sword had at least reached the level of fusion of spirit, and the next step would be unparalleled fusion. This level was something that even Long Yu and the Void Nether Dragon Blade had not reached. However, after more than a year of accumulation, Long Yu and the Void Nether Dragon Blade only lacked an opportunity to increase their compatibility. Perhaps this opportunity was right before their eyes. Long Yu did not retreat, nor did he care about the sword formation that Su Jianbai mentioned. Instead, he took out the Void Nether Dragon Blade and activated its spatial penetration, stabbing it towards the ancient high-grade sword that was flying towards him. In the instant that both parties stabbed at each other, Long Yu felt a rhythmic vibration from the Void Nether Dragon Blade, causing his heartbeat to accelerate continuously. Long Yu realized that his mind was actually attached to the Void Nether Dragon Blade at this moment. He could clearly feel the initial self-consciousness that was born in the Void Nether Dragon Blade. In the next moment, Long Yu realized that the self-consciousness in the Void Nether Dragon Blade had directly ascended, and his connection with the Void Nether Dragon Blade became even closer. Fusion of spirit. Long Yu felt that the penetrative effect of the Void Nether Dragon Blade had increased by who knew how many times, and the Void Nether Dragon Blade finally had a more complete self-consciousness and could even fight on its own. Block that sword. Long Yu gave the order, and then he saw the Void Nether Dragon Blade fighting with the ancient high-grade sword. Perhaps it was because the Void Nether Dragon Blade self-consciousness had just become complete, so it was still a little rusty in battle. But very quickly, the Void Nether Dragon Blade familiarized itself with the way it fought with its opponent and became skillful and at ease. Due to its higher quality, it even began to gradually suppress the ancient high-grade sword. As for Long Yu himself, he changed his direction and flew towards Su Jianbai, who was not far away. I'm too late. Pale sword formation. Su Jianbai saw Long Yu flying towards him, but the corners of his lips curled up slightly, and he retreated rapidly. Immediately after, Long Yu saw streaks of pale sword light appearing around him, forming countless layers of invisible sword light barriers. Some of these sword lights revolved around him continuously, while others stabbed at him continuously, trapping him within this sword formation in an instant. There was obviously a reason why Su Jianbai used this pale sword formation as his trump card. Even Long Yu couldn't find the sword formation's weakness in a short period of time. However, Long Yu believed that every technique had its own weakness. He could not find it now, but as long as he spent some time, he would definitely be able to break this pale sword formation. The prerequisite was that Long Yu had enough time to find the weakness of this pale sword formation. Looks like I have to expose some more techniques. Long Yu was rather puzzled, but he did not want to lose to this Su Jianbai. Hence, even if he had to expose some more techniques, he had to defeat this person. In the next moment, 5 colors appeared on Long Yu's body. It was the power of the Siphon divine character at the quintessence level, and it was unleashed by Long Yu's Soul Seal Siphon technique. Soul Seal Siphon. This was Long Yu's second mystical ability all along, and it was extremely effective against martial cultivators. In the past year, Long Yu had already raised it to the quintessence level. Upon reaching the quintessence level, the Soul Seal Siphon's effect became more comprehensive. Not only could it absorb the enemy's soul imprint, but could also absorb the power of all the divine characters in the surroundings. Siphon Totem. Long Yu unleashed Soul Seal Siphon, and instantly, the power of the 5-colored Siphon divine characters condensed into a 5-colored totem pole beside him. This 5-colored totem pole emitted a suction force continuously, and all the power of the divine characters around Long Yu's body were absorbed into this 5-colored totem pole. This was the quintessence form of Soul Seal Siphon. The appearance of the Siphon Totem could prevent any power of the divine characters from getting close to Long Yu for a period of time, and it would be completely absorbed by the Siphon Totem. In the next moment, all the attacks aimed at Long Yu in the Pale Sword formation were absorbed by this Siphon Totem, and this Siphon Totem was like a bottomless 5-colored whirlpool. No matter how much sword light it absorbed from the Pale Sword formation, it would float beside Long Yu on its own. Chapter 898. When Long Yu found the 5 weak points of the pale sword formation, the corners of his lips curled up slightly. He casually gathered a series of fallen dark stars and threw them at the 5 weak points. Meanwhile, Su Jianbai was looking at Long Yu, who was in his sword formation, with a pale face. This kid, what kind of divine text is that? It can actually absorb all the sword chi? The sword chi that surrounds the sky can't even get close to him. Su Jianbai was stunned by the siphon totem that Long Yu had unleashed. He had never seen such a move, or rather, he had never seen his pale sword formation being broken by someone in such a way. In the next moment, before Su Jianbai could react, Long Yu had already thrown a series of fallen dark stars at the 5 weak points of the pale sword formation. Then, with a single thought from Long Yu, all of them were detonated. When the 5 weak points of the pale sword formation were blasted, the entire pale sword formation began to fall apart. Although it did not collapse immediately, it had already lost the effect of trapping Long Yu. Long Yu's figure was surrounded by the divine text of death. He was like a god of death that had emerged from hell as he flew towards Su Jianbai. At the same time, Long Yu's siphon totem happened to suck away most of the pale sword formation's power. Then, the entire siphon totem returned to Long Yu's inner world. The entire siphon totem had already been sealed. Due to the special effect of the siphon divine text, the power of the pale sword formation absorbed by the totem would gradually be converted into the divine text power that Long Yu specified, such as the Hades divine text, the divine text of death, and so on. At a critical moment, as long as this siphon totem was shattered, it could rapidly replenish the power that Long Yu had expended. This was an extremely simple and highly effective method of recovery. Currently, Long Yu did not need to shatter the siphon totem to recover his power. Thus, he directly stored the siphon totem. With a rough estimate, the total amount of energy absorbed by this siphon totem was equivalent to 1/3 of Long Yu's total energy. In other words, breaking a siphon totem could replenish 1/3 of Long Yu's energy. Although this bit of energy was only equivalent to a few shadow-attributed exotic beast crystals, the existence of the siphon totem was to prevent Long Yu from running out of energy without any exotic beast crystals to replenish his energy, increasing Long Yu's combat endurance. Seeing that Long Yu was flying towards him, Su Jianbai's entire body flickered with light and dyed his entire body into a white light figure. His entire body condensed into a giant sword and slashed towards Long Yu. Good timing. Seeing this, Long Yu laughed heartily. Su Jianbai had actually become one with the sword. This was definitely a good thing for Long Yu. Through balance control, Long Yu easily saw 7 or 8 flaws in this giant sword of light, so he instantly condensed several dozen fallen dark stars and threw them directly at the 7 or 8 flaws in the giant sword of light, causing them to explode when they got close to the giant sword of light. Although the explosion of the fallen dark stars was not very powerful, the place where the explosion happened was where the giant sword of light's flaw was. This explosion directly caused the giant sword of light to stop moving forward to attack Long Yu. Instead, it took a huge step back. The light dissipated and the giant sword vanished. What appeared in front of Long Yu was a figure dressed in white. It was Su Jianbai, but at this moment, Su Jianbai's white clothes were stained with some blood. The blood was caused by the explosion of Long Yu's fallen dark stars. At this moment, Su Jianbai's face was filled with disbelief. He could not understand how Long Yu could break his killer move with such a tiny amount of strength. He saw through the weakness of his move in one glance. You forced me to do this. Su Jianbai did not want to lose. Even if he were to lose, he could not lose to a mere Long Yu. Thus, he finally took out an elixir that he had prepared beforehand. This elixir was called the Radiance Divine Elixir. After consuming it, the strength of his Radiance Divine characters would increase by 3 times. This was equivalent to Su Jianbai advancing by an entire level of martial arts realm, causing his strength to skyrocket. He believed that after consuming the Radiance Divine Elixir, he would definitely be able to defeat Long Yu easily. The corners of Long Yu's lips curled up slightly. Hovering in midair, He watched Su Jianbai's aura skyrocket after consuming the elixir. Then he took out a pitch-black elixir from his bosom, the Void Ghost Pill. After consuming the Void Ghost Pill, the strength of Long Yu's shadow attribute divine characters would increase by 3 times. It could be said that it canceled out Su Jianbai's strength. In this way, it was equivalent to neither of them consuming the elixir. Su Jianbai was so angry that he vomited blood when he saw this. Although the Radiance Divine Elixir was nothing to him, it was still extremely precious. He had only prepared a total of 3 for this Emperor Realm competition. Consuming one to deal with Long Yu had already caused him great heartache, but now, Long Yu had actually consumed a Void Ghost Pill. This almost drove Su Jianbai mad. Fine, to you, the Void Ghost Pill is something that can only be chanced upon and not sought. You've already consumed one in front of me, so you probably don't have any more, right? After Su Jianbai calmed down, he thought that he might not be Long Yu's match now. He could only wait until the duration of the elixir was over before he consumed another one. At that time, Long Yu would definitely not be willing to consume more. Su Jianbai came from the Su Medicine Hall. What did he have the most? Without a doubt, it was undoubtedly medicinal pills. He believed that if they were to compete in terms of medicinal pills, Long Yu would definitely not be his match. Therefore, when he saw that Long Yu had consumed the Void Ghost Pill, Su Jianbai began to retreat and prepare to temporarily avoid the brunt of the attack. In this state, he did not have absolute confidence in defeating Long Yu. However, how could Long Yu let him leave just like that? I've already consumed the Void Ghost Pill. If I don't defeat you in one go, wouldn't it be a waste of this pill? As Long Yu thought to himself, he chased after Su Jianbai directly. Long Yu still had many medicinal pills similar to the Void Ghost Pill on him, and their quality was even higher than the Void Ghost Pill. However, he did not want to waste this medicinal pill for nothing. Therefore, he took advantage of the fact that the Void Ghost Pill had increased his strength by 3 times to chase after Su Jianbai at the fastest speed possible. Su Jianbai was most proficient in the Light Attribute Divine Text. His attainments in the Spatial Divine Text were not very deep, but the Light Attribute Divine Text had the effect of speeding up, causing Su Jianbai's figure to vanish like a wisp of smoke. However, Long Yu did not mind. He raised his hand and grasped the Nether Dragon Blade in his hand. He began to feel the power of the Void Divine Text that surged out continuously. Initially, he had comprehended 30% of the power of the Void Divine Text. However, following the Divine Fusion with the Nether Dragon Blade, he finally comprehended 60% of the power of the Void Divine Text. Moreover, he could use the Nether Dragon Blade's Void Traversal technique. This was true Void Traversal. Its effect was similar to the Universe Scroll that Long Yu had seen before. After the Divine Fusion with the Nether Dragon Blade, Long Yu possessed such a heaven-defying ability. When he executed Void Traversal, coupled with the Void Divine Text that he had comprehended, Long Yu could instantly traverse a distance of over 100 kilometers. Moreover, he sensed that as his cultivation continued to increase, the distance that he could traverse in an instant would increase. As for now, the distance of 100 kilometers was enough. After all, the battlefield of the strongest Emperor Realm was only 100 kilometers in circumference. In other words, with the Nether Dragon Blade, Long Yu could instantly appear anywhere in the battlefield. Coupled with the Shadow, Eye, and Balance control, he could accurately detect Su Jianbai's location. Simply put, it was useless no matter where Su Jianbai fled to now. Long Yu could catch up to him with a single thought. In the next moment, Long Yu's figure flickered from where he stood and vanished. Su Jianbai was retreating as fast as he could into the distance. He gripped the ancient longsword in his hand, but very quickly he discovered that Long Yu had actually appeared in the direction he was retreating in. This discovery stunned him. Long Yu's speed was actually so terrifying that even if he retreated with all his might, he still couldn't match Long Yu's speed. This scene was simply absurd to Su Jianbai. One had to know that although he was not proficient in the Void Divine Text, his speed was still extremely fast with the support of his divine art. Ordinary experts who were proficient in the void divine text might not necessarily be able to catch up to him. Yet now, Long Yu had appeared in front of Su Jianbai. How'd he do it? Su Jianbai wasn't the only one who was puzzled. The other spectators were equally puzzled. They only saw Long Yu's figure flash and appear in front of Su Jianbai. With this flash, he had actually flashed a distance of 60 li. Even some of the martial emperors who were proficient in the void divine text were moved by this. Even martial emperors could at most teleport 50 li with their own strength, and that was already very good. Yet, Long Yu had easily teleported 60 li. Looks like he definitely has a space-type battle weapon on him. Everyone guessed this, but no one connected this to the void nether dragon blade in Long Yu's hand, because battle weapons that could activate long-distance teleportation were mostly specialized, and it was basically impossible for a weapon-type battle weapon to come with this function. Yet, the battle weapon, the void nether dragon blade, was completely beyond the comprehension of the people of the divine battle world. It was only natural that they had all guessed wrongly. It's time to end this. Long Yu appeared in front of Su Jianbai. The corner of his lips curled up slightly, and his entire body was enveloped in the 9 underworlds and death divine characters. The hand of the 9 underworlds and dragon breath of the 9 underworlds, the 2 imperial paths, suddenly burst forth. Su Jianbai wanted to dodge, but on second thought, Long Yu had already caught up to him and was obviously much faster than him. He couldn't possibly keep dodging, and if he kept dodging, wouldn't he lose face completely? In reality, Su Jianbai only felt that he might not be Long Yu's match, but he didn't think that Long Yu could definitely defeat him. Fight! Su Jianbai raised his hand, and the long sword in his hand suddenly shot out. Countless pale white sword rays appeared once again and swept towards Long Yu. This time, Long Yu couldn't be bothered to hold back. A siphon totem appeared beside him and directly absorbed all of his opponent's attacks, leaving nothing behind. Meanwhile, Long Yu's hand of the 9 underworlds and dragon breath of the 9 underworlds struck Su Jianbai head-on. Chapter 899. He couldn't beat Long Yu, and he couldn't run away either. Su Jianbai had even taken a pill, but he still couldn't defeat Long Yu. This made him feel a little hopeless. It was a terrible feeling to lose to someone he didn't think highly of. Most importantly, Long Yu was only at the middle stage of Emperor Realm. If this brat stepped into the late stage of Emperor Realm, wouldn't his strength be heaven-defying? When Su Jianbai thought of the person he liked, Su Ningguang, who seemed to think highly of Long Yu, he was extremely displeased. However, reality had proven that Long Yu was indeed very strong. Su Jianbai lost his fighting spirit under Long Yu's wave after wave of attacks. Even if he still had trump cards he hadn't used, who knew if Long Yu didn't? This match wasn't a particularly crucial one, so Su Jianbai didn't want to go all out. When he thought of this, he activated his King's Life Tablet and admitted defeat. It didn't matter if he lost one match. He could still advance to the next round if he won 2 more. Long Yu sighed in relief when he saw Su Jianbai admit defeat. This was the most difficult match he'd had since he'd participated in the tournament of Strongest Emperor Realm. He'd even used the Siphon Totem. He roughly estimated that Su Jianbai had the strength to step into the top 10 of the Strongest Emperor Realm. They might meet again in the future. Long Yu had to fight for the top 10, and his goal was number 1. Whether it was Yuhan Xin, Black Blade, or Yi Ziwei, he would find a way to defeat all of them. At this moment, Long Yu still had a few trump cards hidden on him. They were all meant to be used to deal with these ultimate opponents. Long Yu obtained his first victory in the 5th round. Then he was arranged to face another peak Emperor Realm expert from the Alliance of 5 Emperors. This person was weaker than Su Jianbai and was crushed by Long Yu. He surrendered in less than 30 minutes. Many people were already researching Long Yu's weaknesses, hoping to defeat him through Long Yu's weaknesses. However, they quickly discovered that Long Yu didn't have any weaknesses based on the strength he displayed so far. Fight against Long Yu? With a mysterious deathly aura surrounding him, he could only use half of his strength in both attack and defense. It would be very difficult for him to be a match for Long Yu in a head-on clash. Hiding with Long Yu? Not only could Long Yu hide himself to the greatest extent, making it difficult for anyone to discover him, but he could also easily find where you were and directly teleport to your side. Using illusory techniques with Long Yu was able to see through the flaws and weaknesses of the illusion array at a glance, and use the fallen dark star to destroy it. No matter how one looked at it, it was impossible to defeat Long Yu at the same level. The only way to defeat him was to suppress Long Yu in terms of strength. Su Jianbai left the stage dejectedly. However, he won the next 2 matches against other Emperor Realm cultivators and advanced to the 6th round in the end. A total of 1,000 people advanced to the 6th round. This meant that the top 1,000 Emperor Realm cultivators had already been decided. Everyone's next target was the top 100 and top 10, especially the top 10. Although many of them weren't strong enough to compete for the top 10. What if they were lucky and encountered weaker opponents along the way? Once they entered the top 10, it would be an excellent opportunity to increase the strength of their inner world. Although most people didn't know what this opportunity was, they were well aware that it could make them stronger. This was because the top 10 of the previous Emperor Realm tournament would become much stronger after a period of time and quickly step into the Emperor Realm. It could be seen that the opportunity the top 10 of the Emperor Realm could obtain not only increased the strength of their inner world, but also the opportunity to step into the Emperor Realm. For many Emperor Realm cultivators, such an opportunity was something they absolutely had to fight for with all their might. Therefore, the battles became more and more intense from the 6th round onwards. Most Emperor Realm cultivators were already fighting with all their might in this round, because losing a match would very likely result in elimination. Su Jianbai was still relatively relaxed. What surprised him was that Su Ningguang didn't make fun of him after he returned. She even encouraged him with a smile and told him to continue working hard. This warmed Su Jianbai's heart. He was a member of the Su family after all. Su Jianbai was unable to increase his strength now. He could only think hard about how to deal with Long Yu, but he couldn't come up with anything at all. It was Su Ningguang who provided him with an idea. Long Yu's martial realm is 1 level lower than yours. If the 2 of you continue to fight, he may be unable to hold on before you do. If you fight a battle of attrition, you will definitely win. Therefore, if you face Long Yu next time, you must prepare enough beast crystals. Su Jianbai's eyes lit up when he heard Su Ningguang's words. This was a good idea. When the 6th round began, Long Yu was first arranged to face a genius disciple from the 6 sects and 10 nations. Of course, this was a genius disciple from more than 10 years ago. He was now a middle-aged man. It was said that this person had also participated in the last competition of the strongest Emperor Realm. At that time, this person's cultivation was also at the peak of Emperor Realm. Now, he was still at the peak of Emperor Realm and hadn't broken through to the great Emperor Realm. It was easy to imagine how much this person wanted the chance to enter the top 10 of the strongest Emperor Realm. Unfortunately, this person encountered Long Yu. In the end, he was going to add a defeat to his record. This person fought with his life on the line the moment he entered the ring. He used all kinds of methods and was extremely vicious. It looked like he didn't want to give Long Yu any chance and directly suppress him to the end. Unfortunately, as soon as Long Yu used the Siphon Totem, he instantly created space for himself to attack. The Siphon Totem could be said to be an extremely terrifying super defensive method. Any divine text power that attacked Long Yu would be absorbed by the Siphon Totem, unless the Siphon Totem reached a saturated state. As soon as the Siphon Totem was used, Long Yu didn't need to worry about being attacked. He immediately launched a counterattack. The Hand of 9 Underworlds, the Light of 9 Underworlds, and the Dragon Breath of 9 Underworlds were activated at the same time. Instead, he completely suppressed his opponent and could only passively defend. In this way, defeat was not far away. Long Yu defeated this person and could be said to have offended the 6 sects and 10 nations again. However, he didn't care. Did he have to admit defeat on purpose? In the next battle, Long Yu's opponent was called Huang Zaishan. Note, Lei Emperor's ninth direct disciple. Looks like this person is Yi Ziwei's ninth senior brother. Long Yu narrowed his eyes. He didn't expect that he and Lei Emperor would be so fated. First, he met Yi Ziwei, then he met Huang Zaishan. This kid's name was very domineering, but he didn't know how strong he was. Of course, no matter what, the opponent was Lei Emperor's direct disciple. Long Yu would not underestimate him. However, in this battle, Long Yu was sure that he would win. This was because Long Yu had already lost to Yi Ziwei. Of course, he couldn't lose to Huang Zaishan as well. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a disgrace to the Red Emperor's master? Even if he had to expose more of his trump cards, Long Yu had to win this battle. Both sides were teleported into the ring. Neither gave up or changed opponents. For Long Yu, he would not choose to give up unless he met his own people. As for Huang Zaishan, he had been looking forward to fighting Long Yu for a long time. The two of them came to a grassland that was filled with fog. This was an extremely spacious grassland, and there were no other obstructions to the eyes. There was only a thick fog that prevented martial cultivators from seeing too far away with their naked eyes. In a battle like this, one could only rely on their senses. The two randomly appeared on the grassland, 10 miles apart, and quickly approached each other. Long Yu, although my master has betrothed junior sister Yi to you, don't even think about touching her. I, Huang Zaishan, am standing here to tell you that you don't deserve junior sister Yi. An extremely arrogant voice came from the front. It was Huang Zaishan. Long Yu was puzzled. He really didn't have any feelings for Yi Ziwei. Huang Zaishan's words were pure nonsense to him. You talk too much. If you want to fight, let's fight. Let me see what you've got. Long Yu felt that he was close enough to his opponent, so he stopped moving forward and floated in the air. Although he couldn't see his opponent's figure, Long Yu could clearly sense his opponent's position. Suddenly, Long Yu felt his surroundings explode with lightning. The boundless fog on the prairie instantly turned into bolts of lightning, causing the entire prairie to turn into a domain of lightning. Long Yu died. Following Huang Zaishan's words, all the lightning and the thunderlight domain swept towards Long Yu Chai. Siphon Totem. Long Yu raised his hand and summoned the Siphon Totem. Against such a large-scale attack, the Siphon Totem was the best way to deal with it. But in the next moment, he discovered that after the Siphon Totem absorbed the surrounding lightning, it actually didn't store any elemental divine rune energy. It's an illusion. Long Yu instantly thought of this. He immediately activated the barrier of death and death aura to defend himself. As expected, in the next instant, he felt as though his body had been struck by a fist. This fist contained the power of endless lightning-attributed divine runes, and it seemed as though it wanted to paralyze Long Yu's entire body. Long Yu was dragged into the illusion unknowingly, and then Huang Zaishan took the opportunity to hit Long Yu's chest with a thunder fist. Fortunately, Long Yu had used the barrier of death and death chi in time, weakening the strength of this punch by at least half. Then he had used his physical body to forcefully block this punch. Fallen Dark Star. Long Yu endured the pain in his chest and raised his hand to condense the fallen Dark Star. In an instant, dozens of fallen Dark Stars spread out in all directions, trying to find the weak point of the illusion and explode. However, Huang Zaishan seemed to have expected this. As soon as Long Yu's fallen Dark Star attacked, it was intercepted by Huang Zaishan and exploded before it even reached the target point. Haha, Long Yu, what does the thunder I feel? Huang Zaishan's voice seemed to come from a very far place. If you want to break this illusion, you must break my thunder eye, but how can I let you attack my eyes? It turned out that the source of this illusion was Huang Zaishan's eyes. Nice theurgy. However, Long Yu did not panic. Instead, he was calm and unruffled as he praised. He had never encountered such a method before, but it didn't mean that he couldn't deal with it. Huang Zaishan's Thunder Fist should be his strongest attack, but it could only cause minor injuries to Long Yu. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.